Hey there, sleepyheads. Welcome back to the channel. Before we drift into tonight's tale of Adventure Time, the Lost Drafts series, I'd love to know where in the world are you watching from tonight? And what time is it for you right now? Drop it in the comments below. It's always magical, seeing how far and wide this sleepy little community reaches. All right, lights low, blankets up. Let's begin. In the soft quiet of early creation, long before Ooh had a name or a map or even a clear horizon, it existed as little more than a pocket of imagination. A hazy bubble floating around the mind of a young show still finding its voice. When we look back at the earliest drafts, the ones smudged with the pencil strokes and half-thought daydreams, we find a world that feels familiar yet distant. Like finding an old photograph where the angles are strange and the colors are muted, but you can still recognize the smile of someone you love. In those very first visions, Ooh wasn't fully whimsical yet. It wasn't the riot of colors and charming shapes we would eventually explore. Instead, it glimmered with a quieter, emptier beauty. Vast plains stretched out without candy-coated buildings. Mountains were rougher, more jagged, like the edges of a dream someone hadn't finished smoothing out. Rivers were thin sketches, barely penciled in, and forests were only clusters of trees that looked more like loose thoughts than full landscapes. These early concept pieces suggest that the world might once have leaned a touch more melancholy than fantastical. A place where the post-apocalyptic scars were closer to the surface. You can almost imagine the land holding its breath, waiting for someone like Finn to step into it and give it purpose. In some of the earliest internal notes, the tone of Ooh is described as soft, eerie, and funny in strange bursts. Nothing too polished, almost as if the land itself was waking up slowly. And right from the start, you can feel the quiet tension between strangeness and comfort. Pendleton Ward always had a deep love for the strange, that warm surrealism that makes you feel like you're inside a dream you never quite want to wake from. So the early shapes of Ooh existed in that haze, floating between an abandoned world and a playful one. A delicate balance where every hill could be a creature, and every shadow could be a remnant of the old world. Some of the first drafts of the world didn't even lean heavily into candy architecture. The Candy Kingdom, at one point, was closer to a patch of land populated by anthropomorphic sweets without a defined society. They were more like wanderers than rulers. Princess Bubblegum herself, in these whispers of early design, wasn't yet the scientific monarch we know. She was simply a sweet-themed figure, more symbolic than structured. The world had fewer rules back then, drifting in creative fog open to any direction. Even Jake's stretching magic, something so central to the playful identity of the show, wasn't always meant to be tied to shape-shifting dog genetics or complex cosmic lineage. In some murky drafts, the world itself was going to be more rubbery, more flexible, with everything bending and bouncing like a living funhouse. Jake's abilities might have simply emerged from the nature of Ooh rather than his own mysterious family history. In these floating early ideas, the landscapes themselves played a larger role. The horizon lines were exaggerated, almost theatrical. Trees had big, round silhouettes, as if they had been plucked from a child's doodle. The sky, too, was drawn with loose strokes, clouds barely formed, almost drifting off the page. You get the sense that Ooh wasn't yet a place filled with kingdoms and factions. It was just a whimsical wasteland where anything could sprout overnight. One of the earliest concepts hinted at an Ooh that leaned more heavily into the surreal post-war emptiness. There were abandoned cities not yet softened by bright palettes or cute designs. Rubble was drawn more realistically. The ruins carried more weight, more silence. But over time, the creative direction shifted toward something gentler, something that held its tragedy softly instead of plainly. A world where you could still sense the great mushroom war beneath the soil, but it never overshadowed the playful magic growing on top. And that evolution feels almost symbolic of the entire show's tone. Adventure Time always held sadness and joy in the same hand. So the early drafts of Ooh mirror that concept beautifully. They are sketches caught between mystery and comfort, between the lingering echoes of a broken world and the hopeful spark of something new taking shape. You can almost see Finn's silhouette in those early drawings, waiting to be discovered, waiting to be placed into a world that was still learning how to smile again. The earliest map layouts are especially fascinating. Some drafts show Ooh as more fragmented, as if the land itself had been shattered into drifting pieces. Islands floated apart, and vast chasms separated regions that would later become neatly connected. While none of those drafts lasted, the feeling of brokenness stayed, influencing places like the Fire Kingdom, the Ice Kingdom, and the Nightosphere. Each land would eventually stand tall with its own identity, but their conceptual roots were tangled together in those fuzzy first sketches. These drafts feel like the world was built from memory rather than precision, like Pendleton Ward and the artists were drawing from some cozy but distant dream. Shapes were intuitive, not logical. Landscapes were determined by feeling instead of geography. And that emotional map would become the heart of Adventure Time, a world guided not by rules but by vibes, playfulness, and the kind of dream logic that makes bedtime stories feel endless. As the world of Ooh slowly gained its shape, you can sense the moment when imagination began settling into something more intentional. Those early drafts show artists circling around an idea that felt almost instinctive. A world that was alive, not just in the traditional sense, but alive in its personality. Hills were drawn with the hint of faces. Rivers curved in playful spirals as if humming their own melodies. Forests tilted slightly, like they were leaning in to listen. It's gentle, almost comforting, to notice how much of Ooh was guided by this desire to create a landscape that felt welcoming despite the shadows underneath. In many of the early story documents, there's a recurring theme of wanting Ooh to evoke childhood nostalgia, not in a perfect, polished way, but in that dreamy, half-remembered feeling of wandering outside on a summer evening, where everything feels a little magical, a little strange. The drafts reflect this beautifully. The trees are cartoonishly rounded, the mountains feel soft even in their jaggedness, and the roads often bend in whimsical, unexpected ways. But even in its earliest imagined forms, Ooh was always a world shaped by contrast. There are concept drawings where a cheerful field sits right beside a grim ruin. A cozy cottage balances precariously near a mysterious crater. Even the earliest drafts understood that Adventure Time thrived on that gentle balance between sweetness and melancholy. It gave the world its signature emotional warmth, that quiet ache beneath the color and laughter. One particularly interesting early idea suggested that Ooh might have been more barren in some regions, with vast stretches of uninhabited land. Empty deserts, quiet valleys, and lonely coastlines. These would have given the show a sense of solitude during Finn and Jake's early adventures. Spaces where the only sounds would be the crunch of grass beneath their boots or the soft shifting of the wind. Though many of these empty spaces eventually became more populated in later drafts, their spiritual imprint remained in areas like the Desert of Doom and the outskirts near the Ice Kingdom. Some variations of the early world map even hinted at a much stranger cosmology. Places that didn't quite obey gravity. Regions that looped back into themselves. Forests meant to shift their paths when you weren't looking. These ideas were never finalized, but you can feel their influence lingering through episodes involving magical realms, time loops, and dreamlike journeys. It's as if the earliest drafts planted seeds and the show later decided which ones would bloom. Ooh's whimsical geography wasn't only a creative choice. It was tied to the emotional core of the series. Pendleton Ward often spoke about wanting kids and adults to feel safe in the world of Adventure Time. Even when things were scary, the world itself should feel like a cozy blanket, softening the edges of fear. The early drafts hold that intention tenderly. Many design notes describe the landscapes as friendly, approachable, or comfortably weird. The world wasn't meant to intimidate. It was meant to soothe. And yet beneath that comforting surface, the remnants of the Mushroom War always drifted quietly. In some concept maps, the war's destruction was emphasized more directly: craters, broken highways, abandoned towers leaning like tired giants. But over time, the decision to obscure most of that devastation beneath layers of whimsy gave Ooh its beautifully unique identity. The tragedy remained, but it whispered rather than shouted. What makes these early drafts so enchanting is how raw they feel. You can imagine the quiet rooms where the creators were sketching, surrounded by stacks of paper and scattered pens, laughing softly as they came up with a land where candy people might coexist with ancient cosmic beings. You can almost hear the gentle hum of creativity, that sleepy, late-night energy when ideas drift in and out like lazy clouds. Even the color palettes were still drifting during these early stages. Some drafts imagined Ooh with softer, more pastel hues. Others leaned into deep blues and glowing greens, giving it a slightly otherworldly tone. It wasn't until later that the signature bright and cheerful palette took hold. But imagining an Ooh painted in softer colors gives the world a dreamlike quality, as if it were illuminated by a gentle, endless twilight. As the drafts continued, the focus slowly shifted from building the world outward to shaping it inward. The team realized they didn't need to explain every detail or define every border. Ooh could thrive on mystery. And so the earliest sketches began to leave intentional gaps, places the show might never visit, regions never fully mapped, spaces left deliberately blank so viewers could imagine their own adventures. This sense of the unknown became foundational to Adventure Time's charm. Ooh felt big, but not overwhelmingly so. It felt mysterious, but not threatening. It held countless stories, many of which were never told. And that was part of the magic. Even in these rough drafts, that philosophy was gently settling in. And within those early sketches, it's fascinating to notice how character and landscape began to echo each other, even in these first drafts. The shapes of the hills, the curving paths of rivers, the arching branches of trees, all of it seemed to respond to the spirit of the characters who would eventually roam the land. Finn's adventurous, slightly reckless energy is hinted at in the twisting roads, winding through valleys that feel alive and unpredictable. Jake's malleable nature is mirrored in the flowing lines of the rivers and the soft, squishy contours of hills. Even the Candy Kingdom's earliest outlines reflected a kind of tentative sweetness, a place trying to assert itself amid the gentle chaos of a recovering world. In these first drafts, the land was not just a backdrop, it was a participant, a quiet companion for the stories waiting to unfold. There's also something remarkably intimate in the sketches of the skies. Early drafts often depicted Ooh under vast, endless skies, painted in shades that are more reflective than descriptive. Sometimes a deep violet stretched across the horizon, fading into muted oranges and pale blues. Other times the sky was left largely blank, letting the imagination wander. It's as if the early team wanted viewers to feel the vastness, the quiet, and the possibilities hidden within the clouds. The sky in these concepts doesn't just set a mood. It seems to breathe alongside the world, shifting in response to the emotions of those who traverse it. Interestingly, many of the earliest maps include hints at territories that would never fully exist in the show. Some regions were planned as fleeting or ephemeral, places meant to appear only briefly, like the edges of dreams. There were notes suggesting forests that might shift overnight, mountains that could subtly alter their shape, and rivers that might vanish and reappear depending on the whim of the story. While these ideas didn't survive into the final show, you can see how they seeded Adventure Time's later fascination with magical, mutable spaces. Even in episodes where a forest or a hill seems ordinary, there is always the sense that the world could quietly change while you weren't looking, a gentle reminder that Ooh is alive in ways both seen and unseen. And then there are the whispers of civilization, tentative and incomplete. The earliest drafts suggest a world where settlements were sparse and loosely defined, rather than neatly structured. Buildings were drawn as simple, almost naive shapes, more symbolic than functional. The Candy Kingdom, for instance, in its earliest sketches, wasn't a formal monarchy, but more of a scattered collection of candy-themed dwellings, soft and approachable, with a light sense of improvisation. In these conceptions, inhabitants seem to drift in and out like characters in a waking dream, appearing when needed, vanishing when their stories had run their course. This approach created a gentle sense of impermanence, a world always in flux, never fully settled, inviting viewers to drift along with its rhythms. One of the most enchanting aspects of these early drafts is how sound seems to be imagined alongside sight. Notes in the sketches hint at a world full of subtle noises, the soft rustle of leaves, the faint ripple of water over rocks, the distant hum of an unseen creature moving across the plains. Adventure Time's final form captures some of this, but in these early concepts, the world almost vibrates with quiet, unrecorded life. There is a meditative quality to it, a slow and gentle heartbeat that makes the land feel tenderly alive. It's a whispering ooh, hinting at stories without ever needing to speak them aloud. Even the earliest attempts at color demonstrate a fascinating experimentation with mood. Some drafts imagined the land in muted, earthy tones, evoking a soft nostalgia, a sense of calm reflection. Others played with deeper, more mysterious hues, emerald greens, twilight purples, and dusky blues, imbuing the sketches with a quiet strangeness, a hint that the world could be mysterious, even slightly unsettling, while remaining inviting. You can almost feel the creators leaning into that delicate balance, a world that could comfort, but also intrigue, one that could soothe yet spark curiosity. And in the midst of all this, the concept of the Great Mushroom War, so central to Ooh's history, was already whispering beneath the surface. Some early sketches depicted ruins more prominently, shattered towers leaning in silence, toppled walls partially swallowed by grass, scattered remnants of a civilization that once was. Yet even then, the intention was not to dwell on devastation, but to suggest it softly, like a half-forgotten memory. It gave the world a quiet depth, a sense that every stone and riverbed held a story, even if we might never fully know it. As the drafts matured, there is a subtle, but unmistakable shift. Shapes become more deliberate, paths more navigable, the skies more expressive. But the initial rawness never fully disappears. In fact, it becomes part of Oo's enduring charm. The early sketches remind us that Adventure Time was born from a tender, exploratory imagination, a place meant to be soft, mysterious, and endlessly discoverable. It was a world where even a slight turn in the landscape, a small bend in a river, or a floating hill could carry the weight of wonder. The whispered beginnings of Ooh were never meant to be perfect, and perhaps that is why they feel so comforting, so intimately magical. Even as the sketches of Ooh began to take on more form, there remained a sense of quiet impermanence, a feeling that the world was always in motion, always just on the verge of dreaming into something new. Mountains could shift slightly in their slopes, rivers could bend with the soft sigh of a passing wind, and forests could rearrange themselves in ways that no map could fully capture. This fluidity gave early Ooh a sense of gentle unpredictability, a place where the imagination could wander freely, guided by instinct and feeling rather than rules or rigid geography. It's a quality that still echoes in the final show, giving every adventure a sense of spontaneity, as if the world itself is aware of the journey it holds for its travelers. Some of the earliest notes describe Ooh almost as a living organism, responding to the moods and actions of those who inhabit it. Hills might lean closer to hear a conversation, or the sky could shimmer differently depending on the emotion of the moment. There are hints that the land could even reflect the psychological state of its characters, a concept that would subtly resurface in later episodes through dream sequences or magical transformations. This early symbiosis between character and world gives Ooh a kind of heartbeat, a rhythm that feels both intimate and expansive, like a lullaby that wraps around every scene, soothing and mysterious at the same time. The early drafts also hint at a playful experimentation with scale. Some sketches depict massive, rolling landscapes that dwarf even Finn and Jake, while others shrink entire villages into cozy nooks tucked under enormous leaves or within hollowed trees. This contrast between grandiosity and intimacy creates a delicate tension, a sense that adventure can be both epic and quietly personal. It's an approach that allowed the final show to feel simultaneously vast and homey, where every corner of Ooh carries the potential for discovery, but never overwhelms the viewer with its enormity. And yet, even amidst this playfulness, there was always a thread of quiet melancholy woven into the fabric of the world. Early drafts frequently returned to the idea of absence, the subtle traces of what came before. Cracked roads hinting at forgotten journeys, shadowed forests whispering of places no longer visited, and ruins softly reclining into the earth like tired old giants. This understated sense of loss adds depth to Ooh, reminding us that, even in a world filled with whimsy, the echoes of the past linger softly in the background. Adventure Time's ability to balance lightheartedness with subtle poignancy can be traced directly to these earliest sketches. Some of the most enchanting early ideas involve the skies and the passage of time. Draft notes suggest a world where the day-night cycle wasn't simply a predictable rhythm, but something more fluid. Sunsets might linger longer than expected, or clouds might drift in slow, languid spirals, painting the horizon in colors that shift with the emotions of the land itself. These visual moods would later influence the show's signature atmosphere, where scenes can be simultaneously calming and awe-inspiring, like the gentle pull of a dream that teases at the edges of consciousness. Even the creatures inhabiting early Ooh are worth lingering over. Early drafts include designs for beings that never made it into the final series, animals with strange shapes and unexpected abilities, spirits that drift silently through forests, and wandering figures that could appear and vanish like smoke. Many of these were pared down or reimagined as more recognizable characters, but their influence lingers in the subtle oddities sprinkled throughout the final show. Each corner of Ooh feels like it could hide something magical, something unexpected, and that sense of discovery begins in these early, unpolished sketches. And then there are the quiet, almost meditative moments. Early drafts often include small details that suggest a world meant for wandering and reflection. A lone cabin perched atop a hill, a brook that winds lazily past a moss-covered stone, or a single tree casting a long shadow over empty ground. These spaces, even in their simplicity, feel alive and patient, as though Ooh itself is waiting for someone to notice, to interact, to breathe within it. This idea of the world as an attentive, responsive companion is one of the earliest and most enduring inspirations for Adventure Time's tone. As the drafts progressed, it became clear that Ooh's design was never meant to be complete in the traditional sense. The maps, the sketches, and the notes all leave intentional gaps. These spaces are invitations to the imagination, quiet pockets of possibility where anything could emerge. They reinforce the show's essential philosophy, that adventure is as much about the journey as the destination, and that the unknown is not to be feared, but gently embraced. By the time Ooh evolved into the world we know today, these whispered beginnings were already woven deeply into its essence. The early sketches, the tentative landscapes, the imperfect shapes, they all carry the soft magic of inception. Even now, when Finn and Jake climb a hill, paddle down a river, or wander through a forest, the gentle echoes of those first drafts are present. They remind us that Ooh is not just a setting, but a living, breathing dreamscape, a place that grows alongside its stories and its inhabitants, a place where imagination roams freely and every corner holds a quiet, waiting mystery. The whispered beginnings of Ooh teach us something tender, that every world, no matter how polished it becomes, starts as a fragile dream. Shapes float, ideas linger, and the heart of creation beats softly beneath the surface. In those early sketches, we can sense the care, the wonder, and the quiet curiosity that gave birth to Adventure Time. And as we drift further into tonight's tale of lost drafts, we carry with us the memory of a world still learning how to smile, still finding its voice in the gentle hush of possibility. As we let the soft whispers of early Ooh settle behind our eyelids, it's time to drift into the quieter, more intimate corners of the show's creation. The characters themselves. Characters are the heartbeat of any story, the gentle pulse that guides us through adventures. And in Adventure Time, each one carries layers of thought, imagination, and sometimes almost forgotten drafts. Before Finn, Jake, Marceline, and Princess Bubblegum found their fully realized forms, they existed first as ghosts in pencil, sketches, and notes that hint at what could have been. These are the spirits in pencil, the prototypes that wandered through Pendleton Ward's imagination long before they ever crossed the screen. Finn, for example, was not always the exuberant, determined boy we know today. In some early concept art, he appeared slightly older, with a more angular face, his expressions sharper, a hint of world weariness lingering in his eyes. His adventurous spirit was still there, but it leaned a little darker, a little more hesitant, like a young wanderer who had seen more than he should. Some sketches suggest he carried items that never made it into the final show. Straps of mysterious equipment, small satchels with curious tools, even a tentative sword that looked heavier and more practical than the iconic golden blade he would eventually wield. These versions of Finn suggest a world where adventure was grittier, a bit closer to survival than whimsical heroism. Yet even in these drafts, there is a softness, an open-heartedness in his posture and gaze, hinting that the essence of the character we love had already begun to crystallize. Jake, too, existed in multiple forms before the stretchy, magical dog we know came to life. In some early sketches, he was imagined almost as a companion spirit, more ethereal than corporeal. His body could stretch, yes, but not in the playful, elastic way that defines his later personality. Instead, it was strange, almost amorphous, a shifting shadow of a dog that could appear differently depending on the story or mood. In other drafts, he was drawn as a slightly more realistic canine, with smaller powers and less pronounced personality quirks, hinting at a companion who might have been loyal but less mischievous, less whimsical. Imagining these early versions of Jake is like hearing the faint echo of a familiar song played on an instrument, slightly out of tune, recognizable, but with a strange, haunting quality that makes you listen more closely. Marceline, the vampire queen, is especially fascinating in her earliest incarnations. Before her final, sleek form, there were sketches of her as a younger, wilder figure, her personality more chaotic and unpredictable. Early notes suggest she might have been a wandering trickster, a creature of the night, whose moral compass was fluid, shaped by whim rather than intention. Her design varied widely, sometimes with longer hair that seemed to float as though underwater, sometimes with exaggerated fangs or sharp, angular limbs that made her seem more spectral. Even in these sketches, however, there is a sense of melancholy and depth that would come to define her character fully. Marceline was always meant to carry both mischief and sorrow, a being who dances on the line between darkness and light, a spirit whose heart beats quietly beneath a veneer of rebellion. Princess Bubblegum, in her earliest drafts, carried even more mystery. She was sometimes imagined as younger, almost ephemeral, her form less rigidly candy-themed, more an abstract representation of sweetness and intellect. Early notes describe her as highly curious, experimenting with strange concoctions, and occasionally wandering into lands and situations far beyond her kingdom's borders. She was never fully defined as a ruler, more a wandering mind, a scientist exploring her world in small, careful steps. These drafts suggest a PB who is less the commanding monarch and more a reflective presence, a thinker whose intelligence and kindness were central even before her official character arc was solidified. Even minor characters like Ice King, Lumpy Space Princess, and Flame Princess have sketches that reveal surprising intentions. Ice King's early design sometimes emphasized his humanity more than his madness, with softer features that hinted at the boy he once was. Lumpy Space Princess appeared initially as more mischievous and less self-assured, a character exploring the bounds of confidence and identity in ways that were only lightly touched upon in the final series. Flame Princess, in her earliest conceptions, was more elemental and abstract, a spirit of fire rather than a fully realized personality, her emotions envisioned as flickering flames that mirrored her inner state. What makes these prototypes so enthralling is how much they speak to the raw creativity of the show's earliest days. Each character is a thought in motion, a gentle idea yet to be polished, carrying within it the seeds of all the relationships, conflicts, and adventures to come. They are reminders that Adventure Time was never born fully formed. Its characters, like the world itself, evolve slowly, shaped by countless sketches, doodles, and quiet musings late at night. And in imagining these early drafts, there is a gentle magic. You can picture Pendleton Ward and the artist sitting quietly, pencils in hand, letting their ideas drift onto the page without concern for perfection. Each line captures an essence, a potential story, a heartbeat waiting to be given life. These spirits in pencil are not incomplete. Rather, they exist in a state of possibility, a soft, inviting liminality that encourages us to imagine not only what was, but what might have been. Even the relationships between characters were subtly hinted at into these early sketches. The bond between Finn and Jake, for instance, was always present, though the tone varied. Sometimes it leaned toward playful mischief, sometimes toward quiet companionship. The sketches suggesting that their connection would be as much about emotional resonance as adventure. Marceline and Princess Bubblegum's early designs hint at complexity, at history, at the subtle currents of tension and care that would later define their interactions. Even minor interactions, such as Ice King's fumbling attempts at connection, appear in soft pencil notes, suggesting humor, pathos, and tragedy, all intertwined. As we wander further into these early visions, it's fascinating to observe the gentle experimentation with personality traits, quirks, and even vulnerabilities that would later define each character. Finn's courage, for example, was always present, but the early drafts sometimes showed him more hesitant, more contemplative, even slightly unsure of the world he was stepping into. In some sketches, his eyes carry a hint of worry or caution, suggesting that the journey of heroism wasn't going to be instantaneous. These nuances hint at a character who would grow gradually, whose adventures would shape not just the world around him, but his own understanding of courage and morality. The seeds of empathy and persistence were already being sown in these pencil lines, delicate yet unmistakable. Jake's earlier forms also explored emotional depth in subtle ways. Beyond the playful, stretchy companion we recognize, some drafts depict him as quiet and observant, a character who sometimes moves through the world with soft patience, watching before acting. These gentle, reflective moments would eventually coexist with his more mischievous tendencies, giving him the layered personality we cherish today. In the earliest sketches, you can almost feel Jake breathing with the land itself, stretching not only physically but emotionally, a companion whose heart seems attuned to the rhythms of ooh. Marceline's prototypes, too, carry traces of hidden complexity. Some early drafts depict her with a sharper, almost more alien appearance, emphasizing her otherworldliness. Yet even in these designs, her emotional core shines through. A sense of longing, a playfulness intertwined with sorrow, a being who floats between worlds, both literally and figuratively. Notes describe her expressions as shifting quickly, capturing the duality of her spirit, her ability to charm, provoke, and unsettle, often all at once. In many ways, these sketches are a testament to the early intention of creating a character who feels deeply alive, a presence that resonates with the quiet melancholy and humor embedded in Adventure Time's universe. Princess Bubblegum's early forms reveal a fascination with intellect and curiosity. While she eventually became the ruler of the Candy Kingdom, the drafts hint at a PB more focused on exploration and experimentation, more concerned with the mysteries of her world than the trappings of leadership. Some sketches even show her wandering forests or tinkering with bizarre gadgets, suggesting a version of her character that is as much a wanderer of ideas as she is a monarch. These explorations in her early design emphasize the depth of thought behind her eventual personality, highlighting the delicate balance between scientific curiosity, moral responsibility, and personal emotion. Even Ice King, whose madness dominates much of the canon, appears more tender and fragile in his first drafts. Early sketches show a man who is less comically villainous and more tragically human, his crown and icy powers almost secondary to the loneliness etched into his posture. Some notes suggest that the character's backstory, the loss of his past self, Simon Petrikov, was only faintly hinted at in the earliest drafts, leaving space for the heart-wrenching depth to develop later. These iterations remind us that Adventure Time's seemingly whimsical exterior often conceals quiet emotional truths, a balance the creators approached gently and deliberately. The supporting cast, though less prominent in the earliest designs, also carried subtle, intriguing possibilities. Lumpy space. Princess's awkward, self-conscious energy was first explored in sketches, emphasizing uncertainty and vulnerability, giving her a relatable humanity beneath the exaggerated, lumpy exterior. Flame Princess, in early drafts, appears almost elemental and abstract, less defined, a flickering being whose moods could ripple like fire across the landscape. Even seemingly minor sketches hint at a thoughtfulness in design. Characters were not only visual presences, but emotional landscapes, each offering unique opportunities to explore the human heart in fantastical forms. And what makes these early sketches so compelling is not just the visual experimentation, but the sense of ongoing discovery. Notes alongside drawings often describe scenarios that never appeared on screen. Finn hesitating at the edge of a forest, Jake morphing into strange forms to navigate a delicate situation, Marceline wandering a quiet battlefield, PB experimenting with an odd chemical reaction, Ice King staring pensively at a distant mountain. These scenarios are fragmentary, ephemeral, like dreams that flutter just out of reach. Yet they give a sense of life and motion that is both calming and enchanting. We also begin to see the early conceptual relationships between characters taking shape. Finn and Jake's bond was sketched as enduring but evolving, a dynamic interplay of mischief, trust, and quiet understanding. Marceline and PB's interactions are suggested as complex, layered with history, teasing the potential for a depth that the final series would explore gradually. Ice King's early relationships hint at tragic loneliness, an outsider yearning for connection. Even in these unfinished forms, the characters are alive with subtle emotional currents, breathing softly on the page and inviting us into their unfolding stories. As we linger among these early drafts, there is something deeply meditative about imagining the characters still in flux, still discovering themselves on the page. Finn, for instance, was at first envisioned not merely as a hero, but as a quiet observer of the world around him, a boy learning the rhythms of ooh as much as exploring its secrets. Some sketches show him pausing mid-step, hand hovering over an unseen object, eyes wide in wonder. It's a small, tender moment that whispers of the patience and curiosity that would later define his adventures. Even in these tentative forms, you can feel the gentle heartbeat of a character whose courage will always be intertwined with empathy, someone who learns as much from listening as from action. Jake, in these early visions, carries a playful fluidity that is both literal and metaphorical. In some sketches, his body stretches into improbable shapes, but in ways that feel natural, like water bending around rocks in a stream. The elasticity of his form, mirrors the elasticity of his personality, adaptive, humorous, and often reflective. He is both companion and conscience, a presence who moves with and through the world, bridging the quiet and the chaotic. These early ideas allow us to sense Jake as more than a comedic foil. He is an emotional anchor, a soft and steadying presence amidst the strange wonders of Ooh. Marceline's earliest sketches are perhaps the most hauntingly beautiful. They depict her not as fully formed, but as something in between. A young wandering spirit, a being in search of herself and her place in the world. Some drafts portray her with hair that seems to float as though submerged, limbs drawn in flowing, undulating lines, and eyes that suggest both curiosity and sorrow. In these designs, she is a mirror to Ooh itself, mysterious, alive, and shifting in ways that are both enchanting and slightly unsettling. The early Marceline is less concerned with narrative roles or heroic arcs. She is simply a presence, a spirit of the night, and of quiet possibility, waiting for stories to find her. Princess Bubblegum's prototype forms reveal a similar delicacy. While she would later become a defined ruler and scientist, in the earliest drafts she appears almost ephemeral, a luminous figure moving lightly through her environment. Sketches depict her experimenting, observing, and sometimes wandering alone through forests or laboratories. Her early expressions carry a soft intensity, as if she is absorbing knowledge not just for understanding, but for its own quiet satisfaction. There is curiosity in every line, a gentle insistence that discovery itself is its own reward. These prototypes remind us that PB's intelligence was always intended to feel organic, deeply human, and quietly wondrous. Ice King, too, shows traces of complexity in these earliest drafts. Some sketches depict him as less exaggerated, less comical, and more tragically human. Notes suggest he would wander vast, empty landscapes, muttering to himself, searching for connection. His crown and icy magic were always present, but in these drafts they feel like extensions of a more vulnerable self. Early Ice King is a figure of quiet melancholy, hinting at a lost past and a longing that permeates every gesture. Even before his full story was realized, these sketches breathe life into his loneliness, making his eventual descent into madness feel softer, sadder, and infinitely more poignant. Supporting characters, too, are full of tender possibility. Lumpy Space, Princess in early sketches, seems more uncertain, a young figure learning to assert herself amid a world that feels much larger than her own self-confidence. Flame Princess appears more elemental and abstract, her early forms almost flickering on the page, reflecting her volatile emotions. Even minor figures, sketched in passing, show thoughtfulness. Animals, townsfolk, wandering spirits, and fleeting faces hint at the kind of rich, lived-in world the creators imagined, where every presence has a story, even if it never reached the screen. What is particularly striking about these early drafts is the careful attention to emotion conveyed through body language. Finn's posture, Jake's stretch, Marceline's fluid movements, PB's reflective gaze, and Ice King's solitude all speak softly to the audience, even without dialogue. The sketches capture what the creators might have called the quiet heartbeat of the characters, a sense of inner life that would eventually carry the show's most resonant moments. Adventure Time, in essence, was never meant to be just a visual spectacle. It was always meant to breathe with its characters, allowing their spirits to wander freely alongside the audience. Even interactions between characters were hinted at delicately. Early sketches suggest Finn reaching a hand toward Jake, not always in action, but in quiet solidarity. Marceline and P.B. appear together in a few scattered drawings, their gazes lingering, hinting at histories untold and emotional layers yet to be revealed. Ice King often appears in isolation, yet early notes imply that his gestures and expressions were designed to evoke empathy rather than ridicule. There is an astonishing subtlety in how these early prototypes communicate so much without saying a word. And of course, the pencil lines themselves carry magic. Each sketch is soft, tentative, and yet alive. The lines curve, bend, and breathe, almost as if the characters themselves are aware of their own becoming. These early designs exist in a liminal space between imagination and realization, hovering somewhere between possibility and reality. They invite us, the viewers, to step in quietly and to trace the lines with our eyes and to feel the pulse of potential within each figure. As these early drafts continue to take shape, one of the most captivating aspects is the gentle experimentation with the characters' relationships to the world itself. Finn, in particular, is often depicted as moving through the environment in ways that feel more tentative than heroic. A boy quietly learning the rhythm of a land that is still discovering itself. Some sketches show him sitting on a hill, staring out at distant mountains, or crouching beside a stream, touching the water as if sensing the heartbeat of Ooh itself. These quiet moments are profoundly intimate, inviting the viewer to imagine not just adventure, but reflection, curiosity, and the soft wonder of discovery. Jake, in these early designs, carries a sense of fluid companionship. His stretches and transformations are playful, yes, but they are also gentle, almost thoughtful. In one sketch, he wraps himself around Finn protectively, not in a dramatic gesture of heroism, but in a calm, quiet reassurance. These early interpretations hint at the deep emotional resonance that would define his character, a being who moves through life with humor and elasticity, yet whose heart remains steady and attuned to the feelings of those he loves. Even in pencil, his presence is warm, reassuring, and deeply alive. Marceline, too, evolves in fascinating ways. Some early concepts depict her more shadowed, less defined, with her hair flowing like liquid night and her limbs drawn in fluid, almost dreamlike lines. She hovers between worlds, a liminal figure not entirely of the material plane, a spirit whose joy and sorrow are equally potent. Her early sketches show her observing, interacting softly, and moving with a quiet autonomy. Even when she appears mischievous or slightly chaotic, there is an undeniable grace and depth, a reminder that every choice she makes carries weight, even in a world that often feels playful and unpredictable. Princess Bubblegum's early prototypes reveal a similar subtlety. These sketches often depict her as reflective, almost ethereal, experimenting with science or quietly exploring her surroundings. There is a sense that she is both observer and creator, moving with purpose yet unhurried, always curious about the mechanics and mysteries of Ooh. Some notes suggest she was originally imagined less as a ruler and more as a wanderer of ideas, someone whose intellect is gentle and exploratory, whose moral compass guides her without ever becoming authoritarian. Even in these earliest forms, the essence of PB's intelligence and empathy shines, quiet but undeniable, like the soft glow of morning sunlight spilling through a window. Ice King's early drafts convey a particularly tender melancholy. While the final show presents him as eccentric and at times comically frustrating, the sketches hint at the man he once was, Simon Petrikov, haunted by loss and longing. Early designs show him moving slowly, often alone, his gaze distant, his posture heavy with quiet grief. Even the crown and his icy powers feel secondary to his solitude. These preliminary ideas imbue the character with a poignancy that later episodes would explore more fully, reminding us that beneath the absurdity lies a profound and deeply human vulnerability. The supporting cast, too, carries subtle hints of story and personality in their earliest iterations. Lumpy Space Princess is portrayed as awkward, uncertain, yet resilient, a figure learning to assert herself and embrace her uniqueness. Flame Princess flickers with energy and emotion, her elemental nature serving as a mirror to her inner state, while minor characters, forest spirits, wandering animals, and background inhabitants populate the sketches in ways that suggest a rich, lived-in world. Every pencil mark carries intention, a quiet signal that even the smallest figures have a role to play in this unfolding tapestry. What is perhaps most enchanting about these early sketches is the sense of possibility they convey. Every line seems alive with potential, every shadow and curve a suggestion rather than a conclusion. Finn, Jake, Marceline, PB, and Ice King are all in states of becoming, each figure suspended between idea and realization, waiting for the final story to catch up to the imagination that drew them. The pencil, the paper, and the hand that moves across it all collaborate to create characters who feel at once incomplete and fully alive, a paradox that mirrors the dreamlike nature of Ooh itself. The early character prototypes also reveal a soft interplay between humor and pathos, a hallmark of Adventure Time storytelling. Finn's cautious optimism, Jake's gentle reassurance, Marceline's playful melancholy, PB's reflective curiosity, and Ice King's tender loneliness all carry a duality that allows the show to move seamlessly between laughter and quiet contemplation. Even before dialogue or fully realized animation, these early sketches breathe emotion into the world, teaching us that characters do not simply exist. No, they resonate, they reflect, and they invite us to feel alongside them. And perhaps the most magical aspect of these spirits in pencil is the intimacy of creation. We can almost hear the soft scratch of pencil on paper, the quiet deliberation, the whispered ideas shared among artists in a dimly lit room. Every sketch, every note, every unfinished line carries the weight of curiosity, care, and quiet imagination. These characters, even in their earliest, most fragile forms, invite us to enter their world, to walk softly beside them, and to imagine their stories as they might have unfolded in infinite variations. Even when these prototypes were later revised, altered, or abandoned, their essence remained woven into the final characters. Finn's bravery, Jake's adaptability, Marceline's complexity, PB's curiosity, and Ice King's melancholic longing all carry traces of those earliest moments in pencil. The sketches act as gentle ghosts, soft reminders that the characters we love today are the result of patient creation, tender experimentation, and the quiet persistence of imagination. In the end, these spirits in pencil teach us something profound, that every fully realized character was once a whisper of possibility, a soft line on a page, a tender exploration of what might be. Adventure Time's magic does not come from perfection or finality, but from the delicate, breathing energy of these early drafts. And as we drift deeper into tonight's tale of lost drafts, we carry with us the quiet resonance of these pencil-born spirits, watching over the world of Ooh as it slowly takes shape in our imaginations. As we settle deeper into the quiet heart of Ooh, it is time to explore another hidden layer of the world, the adventures that never made it to the screen. These are the lost adventures, stories that floated in drafts, sketches, and whispered notes, hinting at what could have been. They are episodes that existed only in imagination, in half-written scripts, and in Pendleton Ward's early visions. Some of these stories are slightly darker, some more whimsical, and all carry a sense of possibility, a gentle invitation to imagine a version of Adventure Time that exists just beyond reach. One of the earliest lost adventures was a draft focusing on Finn, wandering a forest that never truly existed in the final series. In this episode, the trees themselves were alive in subtle ways, shifting their branches when no one was looking, bending to form new paths and closing old ones. The script notes describe Finn following soft, flickering lights that led him deeper and deeper into the forest, where he would encounter creatures that were never fully defined, beings of shadow, mist, and quiet light. The idea was to explore Finn's curiosity and courage in a setting that responded almost as a living character, a gentle prelude to the more surreal, dreamlike adventures we would later see, yet tinged with a slightly eerie, reflective tone. Another lost episode centered on Jake discovering a hidden part of his own magical lineage. The draft sketches hint at a sprawling underground network of tunnels, glowing faintly with bioluminescent moss, where Jake could encounter distant relatives, strange forms of magic, and even reflections of his own emotions in physical shapes. The episode was intended to be both playful and introspective, giving Jake an opportunity to explore not only the physical extent of his powers, but also the emotional depth that had been suggested in the earliest concept sketches. While the final series touches on Jake's heritage in brief moments, this episode would have lingered quietly, offering a slow, meditative exploration of identity, belonging, and the gentle power of family. One particularly intriguing draft suggested an alternate Ice King story. In this version, Ice King would discover fragments of his human memories, scattered across Ooo, buried in old ruins and quiet places forgotten by time. The adventure would follow him as he pieced together moments of his lost past, encountering echoes of relationships and experiences that had faded from his mind. The story was planned to be bittersweet, full of soft moments of reflection, fleeting humor, and tender sadness. The notes even hint at a scene in which he pauses at a frozen lake, staring at the reflection of his younger self, a quiet meditation on loss and the passage of time. This lost adventure would have allowed audiences to step even closer to the heart of Simon Petrikov, exploring emotions that the final show reveals in fleeting, delicate glimpses. Marceline also had an early draft of an episode that never aired. In this story, she would journey into a forest where the trees were memory vessels, holding the recollections of anyone who had passed through. The forest would whisper secrets, echo with laughter, and hum with quiet sorrows. Marceline's task was to navigate these memories, encountering visions of people and places that shaped her life and her understanding of the world. It was an intimate, reflective tale, one that emphasizes her melancholy and depth without resorting to overt drama. The notes describe her pauses to listen to the forest, soft exchanges with unseen spirits, and moments of introspective solitude, all conveying the quiet beauty and gentle sadness that define much of her character. Some lost adventures were more whimsical, leaning into the playful surrealism of Ooo. One early draft imagines a day when the sky rains tiny, colorful stars, each one carrying a different magical property. Finn and Jake must collect the stars before they disappear, encountering humorous, unexpected obstacles along the way. Though the episode was never fully realized, the concept notes emphasize the importance of wonder, exploration, and small, quiet joys, themes that echo throughout the show, but here amplified in a soft, dreamlike context. The whimsical tone is balanced with subtle reflection, hinting at the fleeting, precious nature of magical moment and inviting viewers to linger in their imagination. There are also lost drafts that hint at darker, more enigmatic possibilities. One such script revolves around a shadowy version of the Candy Kingdom, where familiar characters appear slightly altered, quieter, more secretive, and sometimes almost unrecognizable. Finn and Jake wander this subtly distorted land, piecing together a puzzle of hidden histories, forgotten customs, and soft, enigmatic dangers. The episode was designed to be unsettling in the gentlest way possible, emphasizing mystery and curiosity over fear or tension. It's an early exploration of how Adventure Time could balance whimsy with the lingering whispers of history, a space where the shadows of the past meet the soft light of possibility. And what is remarkable about these lost adventures is how they reflect the same tender philosophy that runs through Ooh itself. Every draft, whether whimsical, melancholic, or slightly eerie, treats the world as alive, breathing alongside its characters. Trees whisper, rivers guide, ruins remember, and the sky itself seems to respond to the stories unfolding below. These episodes were never meant to overwhelm or frighten, but to invite gentle curiosity, slow reflection, and quiet wonder, a perfect companion to bedtime imagination. As we wander further into these lost adventures, we find drafts that explore Ooh in even more unconventional ways. One concept imagines a world where time behaves differently in pockets of the land. Finn and Jake stumble upon a valley where minutes stretch into hours and hours condense into seconds. Trees grow and wither in rapid succession, rivers twist and rewind, and clouds drift backward across the sky. The draft notes suggest that this story would have allowed for quiet reflection on impermanence, on the fluidity of experience, and on how moments, no matter how brief, carry weight and meaning. Finn and Jake's playful curiosity drives the narrative, yet the underlying theme remains soft, philosophical, and dreamlike, perfectly aligned with the gentle tone of bedtime storytelling. Another early draft explored the concept of parallel oohs, hints of worlds that existed alongside the one we know, slightly different, slightly askew. In one scene, Finn encounters an alternate version of himself, a boy whose adventures had taken different paths, who carries the lessons of choices made and opportunities missed. Jake appears alongside him, but in a form subtly altered by this other reality, offering new insights into loyalty, flexibility, and the nature of friendship. The episode would have unfolded slowly, emphasizing quiet dialogue, observation, and gentle realization, rather than high-stakes action. These early sketches demonstrate how Adventure Time's creators were willing to explore existential concepts even within the comforting, whimsical frame of Ooh. Marceline's lost adventures continue to intrigue. One draft portrays her wandering through an abandoned music hall, long forgotten and overgrown with creeping vines and soft moss. The walls hum faintly, echoing melodies from the past, and she interacts with echoes of performances long ended. The episode is both eerie and tender, highlighting Marceline's connection to memory, loss, and the passage of time. Her vampiric nature is present but subtle, serving more as a lens for observation than as a source of conflict. This narrative emphasizes reflection over spectacle, and in its gentle, haunting mood, we can already hear the faint strings of a lullaby, carrying both melancholy and comfort. One particularly whimsical draft centers on the Ice King, depicting a day when he loses his magic temporarily and is forced to navigate Ooh as an ordinary, fragile human. In these sketches, he fumbles through mundane tasks, fetching water, walking across forests, interacting with the townsfolk, all while trying to maintain his dignity. There is humor, certainly, but also quiet introspection. The draft notes suggest moments where Ice King pauses to watch the sunset, noticing the beauty of ordinary existence for the first time in decades. This lost adventure hints at a tenderness that the final series would occasionally reveal, showing that even characters defined by eccentricity or power have moments of quiet vulnerability. Some lost episode drafts highlight more ethereal and surreal ideas. One draft envisions a nighttime journey where Finn and Jake drift through floating islands, suspended in the sky. These islands are bathed in soft, shifting colors, populated by creatures that seem to exist partly in dream and partly in reality. The narrative unfolds gently, a sequence of vignettes rather than a conventional plot, emphasizing wonder, exploration, and the joy of quiet discovery. The concept notes describe soft winds, subtle lights, and sounds that hum just at the edge of perception, creating an almost hypnotic, meditative atmosphere. It's a story that, like a dream, exists without urgency, inviting viewers to wander, observe, and reflect. And then there are stories that hint at the unseen histories of Ooh. Some drafts explore ruins, old civilizations, and relics left behind by those who came before. Finn and Jake might discover an ancient library buried beneath the earth, filled with books that whisper secrets when opened, or stumble across a decaying palace where the remnants of an unknown kingdom linger quietly. These lost adventures focus not on danger or heroics, but on curiosity and gentle awe, reminding us that Ooh is a world rich with history and memory, a place where even the smallest exploration carries the weight of wonder. Even in these unfinished narratives, there is a remarkable attention to emotional texture. Each lost adventure balances humor, reflection, and gentle tension, creating a calm but engaging rhythm. Characters experience small challenges, discover subtle truths, and encounter moments of beauty and surprise, all without forcing drama or urgency. The world itself participates quietly, shaping and responding to the journey, reinforcing the idea that Ooh is alive in ways that are soft, subtle, and endlessly magical. Beyond these whimsical and surreal concepts, some lost adventures delve into subtle emotional and psychological exploration, gently nudging the boundaries of the Adventure Time universe. One such draft imagines Finn waking to a land where everyone has forgotten him, not through malice, but through the soft, shifting currents of memory. He wanders through towns and forests, attempting to reconnect with familiar faces, each encounter tinged with quiet poignancy. Jake accompanies him, his elastic form reflecting Finn's unease, sometimes stretching into comforting shapes or gently nudging him forward. The story was intended as a meditation on presence, memory, and the quiet reassurance of companionship, highlighting that even in moments of isolation, bonds remain a soft, enduring heartbeat beneath the surface. Another draft explores a lost day in Marceline's life, where the sky itself becomes a mirror to her emotions. Clouds stretch into shapes that recall past adventures, whispers of lost friends, and flickers of old music that only she can hear. She navigates the shifting skyscape, encountering echoes of moments that shaped her, from laughter-filled days with friends to the quiet sorrow of solitude. This episode would have been almost entirely reflective, focused on mood and sensation rather than action, a gentle journey through memory and feeling. It's a testament to how Adventure Time could be introspective without losing its magic, balancing melancholy and warmth in delicate, almost meditative ways. Some lost drafts feature alternate versions of familiar episodes, subtly transformed. For example, a draft imagines the Candy Kingdom facing a soft, mysterious ailment that slowly turns candy citizens into more abstract, amorphous forms. Finn and Jake explore the kingdom, gently investigating, encountering fleeting shadows and whispers, and ultimately uncovering that the transformation is temporary, a reminder that even in strange, unsettling moments, Ooh is resilient and alive. These early drafts emphasize exploration, curiosity, and the slow unraveling of gentle mysteries, prioritizing mood and wonder over overt conflict, and offering viewers a quieter, more reflective version of adventure. In other sketches, Ice King embarks on a journey not to kidnap princesses or wield magic, but to simply experience the world outside his lonely towers. He wanders through valleys, watches clouds drift, and interacts awkwardly with the creatures he had never noticed before. The lost adventure unfolds at a slow, meandering pace, focusing on subtle humor, quiet discovery, and soft reflection. It is an early exploration of the tender humanity that lies beneath his eccentricity, suggesting that even those who seem lost or misunderstood can find small, meaningful moments of connection when they pause and observe the world gently. Several drafts explore Ooh as a space where the ordinary and extraordinary coexist seamlessly. One episode depicts Finn and Jake encountering a small, nondescript village where magic is subtle and understated, a floating flower, a quietly singing rock, a tree that rearranges its branches when observed. The episode has no urgent threat, no climactic battle, but thrives on observation, curiosity, and small acts of kindness. Finn might pause to help a creature, Jake to make a shadowed form smile, and together they move through a world that feels alive and responsive. These sketches reveal the quiet philosophy embedded in the lost adventures. That wonder often comes in small, gentle interactions rather than grand spectacle. Other drafts push further into surrealism. One lost story imagines Finn and Jake drifting through a river that flows not with water but with light, reflecting dreams and memories of those who have traveled through it before. The two wanderers float lazily, encountering shimmering visions that whisper stories without words, gently nudging them toward reflection. There is a dreamlike, hypnotic rhythm to the narrative, a flow that mirrors the river itself. The sketches suggest that these lost adventures were not merely stories, but invitations to slow down, to breathe, and to linger in a space where imagination can wander freely, unbound by convention or expectation. And even in stories that were intended to be more humorous, there is a soft undertone of reflection. Drafts depict playful mishaps, characters interacting in slightly absurd ways, minor misunderstandings resolved with quiet humor, but always balanced by tenderness. A misplaced spell might cause gentle chaos, or a simple experiment might spiral into an amusing but harmless spectacle. Through these sketches, the creators were experimenting with the delicate balance of humor, magic, and heart that defines Adventure Time, allowing the audience to engage emotionally even as they smiled softly at whimsical events. Perhaps what makes these lost adventures most enchanting is the way they treat Ooh itself. The land is never static or background. It is alive, breathing, and responsive. Valleys, rivers, and forests carry subtle emotional cues. Ruins whisper forgotten histories, skies reflect moods, and even in playful episodes, there is a sense that every corner of Ooh has a story, a heartbeat, and a quiet invitation for the characters and for the audience to explore. These early drafts capture the essence of Adventure Time as a space for gentle curiosity, wonder, and emotional resonance, a world designed to be savored slowly, ideally as the soft light of bedtime begins to fade. As we drift further into these lost adventures, the true magic lies in their quiet intimacy. Many of the drafts share a gentle rhythm, a pacing that mirrors the natural ebb and flow of thought and dream. They are not rushed. There is no need for urgency or loud climaxes. Instead, they encourage lingering, pausing, and observing the subtle interactions between characters in their world. Finn might crouch beside a sparkling brook, listening to the water as it winds lazily through the forest. Jake could stretch into soft, playful shapes to amuse a creature or comfort a friend. Marceline might hum quietly in a dim glade, her voice weaving with the whisper of leaves. Princess Bubblegum may examine a curious flower, pondering its nature with quiet fascination. Even Ice King, wandering in his lonely isolation, might pause to watch the soft drift of clouds, feeling a faint echo of longing and recognition in their gentle patterns. Each lost adventure invites us into a space where the world and its inhabitants are deeply connected, breathing and observing in tandem. Some drafts explore the idea of gentle tension rather than overt danger. In one episode, a soft, creeping fog covers a quiet village. It is not harmful, not menacing, but curious and mysterious, shifting streets and hiding familiar landmarks. Finn and Jake navigate the fog carefully, guided by intuition and small gestures of observation. Along the way, they encounter villagers who speak in hushed tones, sharing subtle hints about the nature of the fog and its gentle magic. The episode is designed to cultivate curiosity, patience, and reflection rather than fear or urgency. The calm pacing and muted atmosphere emphasize subtlety, teaching that even soft mysteries can hold profound fascination. Other drafts focus on the theme of memory and history in Ooh. One imagined episode depicts Finn discovering fragments of an ancient civilization hidden beneath the earth, where walls are etched with soft, luminescent runes. Each rune tells a story, a quiet whisper of lives lived long ago. As Finn explores, he learns small truths about heroism, kindness, and the impermanence of all things. Jake accompanies him with quiet reassurance, stretching gently to illuminate dark corners or offer support. The story is almost meditative, emphasizing discovery, reflection, and the passage of time. It captures a sense of soft reverence for Ooh's layered past, revealing that even fleeting, forgotten moments leave traces that resonate across generations. Marceline's lost adventures often embrace an ethereal, reflective tone. One draft places her in a skybound glade where floating lanterns drift endlessly, and the lanterns carry memories, songs, and moments long past, and Marceline interacts with them gently, feeling the warmth of forgotten joys and the quiet sting of loss. The episode is devoid of conventional conflict, instead offering a contemplative meditation on memory, impermanence, and the beauty of small, fleeting moments. In these early drafts, her character is already defined by the duality of mischief and melancholy, demonstrating how Adventure Time could balance whimsy with subtle emotional resonance. Some whimsical drafts envision Finn and Jake encountering entirely new realms of Ooh. Floating islands, upside-down forests, rivers of light, and ephemeral creatures populate these stories. One draft suggests a forest where shadows gain life, moving independently and interacting with the characters in playful, thought-provoking ways. Finn and Jake engage with these shadows, learning from them, laughing with them, and ultimately returning home with a quiet sense of wonder. The episodes emphasize observation, reflection, and gentle humor, reinforcing the soft rhythm of lost adventures, a world designed not to alarm but to mesmerize, to lull, and to inspire imagination. Other lost stories delve into relationships and subtle emotional growth. Ice King, for example, is sometimes portrayed not as an antagonist, but as a figure exploring the world in quiet, tentative ways. He may encounter fleeting moments of connection with creatures or people, moments that do not resolve dramatically, but leave a lingering warmth, a sense of possibility. Similarly, Marceline and Princess Bubblegum's early interactions in draft sketches are nuanced, highlighting shared histories, quiet tensions, and moments of vulnerability without forcing dramatic confrontation. These drafts reveal the creator's careful attention to emotional resonance, showing that Adventure Time could explore complex feelings even within a gentle, bedtime-friendly framework. Some drafts take inspiration from dreams themselves. Episodes were envisioned where reality bends subtly, colors shift with emotion, landscapes rearrange themselves, and time flows inconsistently. Characters drift, pause, and explore in ways that mirror the subconscious, creating a soft, hypnotic rhythm that encourages viewers to sink deeper into the story and perhaps into sleep. These lost adventures are almost like lullabies for the imagination, delicate, reflective, and endlessly open to interpretation. In these lost adventures, Ooh becomes more than a backdrop. It is a living participant. Hills, forests, rivers, clouds, and ruins all respond to the character's movements and choices. Magic is subtle and pervasive, influencing events in quiet, almost imperceptible ways. Even humor is tempered with reflection, often arising from observation rather than slapstick. From the gentle interaction of character and environment rather than chaos. The drafts show a world that is immersive, alive, and endlessly fascinating. A world that is at once comforting and mysterious, perfect for bedtime contemplation. What these lost episodes share is a profound sense of intimacy, curiosity, and wonder. They remind us that Adventure Time was never just about action or spectacle. Its heart lies in the gentle rhythms of exploration, observation, and emotional resonance. The drafts invite us to slow down, to notice small details, to reflect quietly on the world and the characters inhabiting it. They are stories that exist in the liminal space between imagination and realization, lingering softly in the mind like the echo of a gentle dream. In the end, these lost adventures teach us something tender, that every story has beginnings, middle passages, and whispers of what could have been. Ooh is a world of infinite possibility, where the imagined and the unrealized hold as much magic as the stories we remember. As we drift through these drafts, we are invited to wander softly, observe quietly, and immerse ourselves in a universe where curiosity, reflection, and gentle wonder guide every step. Adventure Time's lost episodes may never have aired, but their spirit lingers in every pause, every whispered wind, and every quiet heartbeat of Ooh. Tonight, as we drift gently deeper into the hidden corners of Ooh, we turn our attention to the stories that were sketched, whispered, and sometimes abandoned before they could fully unfold. These are the forgotten threads of story arcs, narratives that linger in drafts, early notes, and fleeting sketches, suggesting that Adventure Time was always meant to contain a vast, layered tapestry of possibility. They are not abrupt or chaotic, but subtle, winding paths that like quiet streams, thread through the land and through the hearts of its characters. In some early notes, there are hints of long arcs that would explore the passage of time in Oo more deliberately. One concept envisions a series of events following Finn as he ages, not in rapid leaps, but in soft, incremental stages, allowing the audience to witness his growth as a gentle, evolving process. The sketches depict him in forests that slowly change across seasons, towns that gradually expand or contract, and creatures whose lives wax and wane quietly over time. These story arcs were intended to highlight continuity, reflection, and the accumulation of experience, showing that Oo is a living world where actions ripple gently across time. Jake's arc, in these early threads, mirrors this rhythm. Notes suggest an exploration of the balance between playfulness and responsibility, highlighting moments where his elasticity is tested, not just physically, but emotionally. He has shown comforting Finn in tender, reflective ways, stretching himself into forms that symbolize patience, empathy, and quiet protection. Early sketches hint at a narrative in which Jake learns that his abilities are not merely for spectacle or mischief, but for sustaining bonds, offering support, and navigating the emotional landscape of Oo with care. It is a subtle arc, almost imperceptible in its unfolding, yet profoundly touching, reminding us that even fantastical characters carry real emotional weight. Marceline's forgotten threads are particularly haunting and poetic. Early notes describe a long arc tracing her navigation between solitude and connection, exploring her relationships with those she has loved and lost. There are hints of encounters with ghosts of past friends, reflections on fleeting happiness, and moments of quiet realization that her choices, laughter, and sorrow leave gentle imprints on the world. These arcs were designed to be episodic in small, meditative steps rather than grand, climactic movement. Each interaction, each pause, each melody hummed softly in an abandoned glade was meant to deepen our understanding of her, to show that even beings as extraordinary as Marceline move through Oo with the same delicate rhythms of longing, curiosity, and reflection that we all know. Princess Bubblegum's story arcs in the early drafts reveal an exploration of morality and science that unfolds slowly, almost imperceptibly. One thread suggests that PB would wrestle with the responsibilities of leadership, experimenting with both the limits of her own intellect and the boundaries of ethical action. There are soft hints that her scientific endeavors would sometimes yield unexpected consequences, requiring her to pause, reflect, and gently adapt. These story arcs emphasize growth not as dramatic upheaval, but as a careful navigation of choices and consequences, a reminder that curiosity and wisdom are intertwined in quiet, subtle ways. Ice King's forgotten threads are imbued with quiet tragedy and gentle melancholy. Early notes describe arcs where he encounters fragments of his past life, the echoes of Simon Petrikov in isolated ruins, abandoned towns, or frozen landscapes. Each discovery is small, understated, but cumulatively they hint at his lost humanity and the lingering traces of memory that guide his behavior. Some sketches show him pausing by a frozen lake, staring at the reflection of a younger self, or wandering through ruins, touching objects that resonate faintly with forgotten emotion. These arcs were designed to unfold gradually, layering small, tender moments of introspection atop his outward eccentricity, revealing that beneath the comic exterior lies a slow, quiet ache that shapes every action and misstep. Some forgotten threads explore interactions between characters in ways that never reach the screen. Early drafts suggest arcs in which Finn and Marceline might have shared longer periods of quiet companionship, wandering forests together, exchanging thoughts, and confronting subtle challenges that reveal their personalities in soft, intricate detail. Finn and PB's interactions are sometimes portrayed as slow-growing friendships, built on trust and curiosity rather than overt drama. Even Jake and Ice King's arcs hint at moments of unexpected camaraderie, brief and fragile, showing that bonds can form in the gentlest of ways, even between unlikely companions. These story arcs often pivot on subtle motifs: memory, time, nature, and quiet magic. A draft arc describes Ooh itself as a character, responding to the emotional states of those who inhabit it. Trees bend, rivers murmur, clouds shift, and shadows stretch and contract with the rhythms of thought and feeling. Finn's footsteps, Jake's stretches, Marceline's hums, PB's quiet experiments, and Ice King's solitary wandering are all subtly mirrored by the environment. The story arcs are designed to be immersive, weaving character and world together so seamlessly that the boundary between observer and observed softens, allowing audiences to drift gently into the flow of narrative without urgency, without tension, but with wonder. Early sketches and notes hint at arcs exploring consequences in subtle, almost poetic ways. A draft shows Finn planting seeds in a quiet grove. Years later, he returns to find towering, magical trees where he once walked. Jake stretches alongside him, marveling at the growth, both literal and metaphorical. Marceline strums her bass in a quiet glade, noticing flowers that bloom in unusual patterns, reflecting the gentle impact of choices over time. These arcs suggest that Adventure Time was conceived not just as a sequence of adventures, but as a slow, unfolding meditation on cause, effect, and quiet resonance. Threads of story that ripple gently through the lives of its characters, shaping them, shaping Ooh, and shaping the audience's imagination. As we drift deeper into these forgotten threads, the arcs reveal a delicate layering of character growth and subtle world-building. One early draft imagines Finn embarking on a journey through Ooh that spans multiple small adventures, each seemingly mundane but quietly transformative. He might assist a village with a gentle, magical problem, discover a forgotten library filled with whispering books, or navigate a forest where the trees bend and sway as if breathing. Each encounter is designed to leave a soft imprint, teaching Finn lessons not through grand battles, but through observation, empathy, and quiet decision-making. The narrative moves like a slow river, carrying the characters along without force, inviting the audience to float alongside them in gentle contemplation. Jake's arcs are intertwined with Finn's in subtle ways. Some drafts explore the emotional dimensions of his elasticity, not just in a physical sense, but as a metaphor for adaptability and understanding. There are sketches depicting Jake stretching to comfort others, morphing into shapes that reflect the emotions of those around him, and acting as a bridge between chaos and calm. These arcs highlight the understated heroism of patience, reflection, and support. They remind us that heroism is not always loud or explosive. It can be quiet, steady, and deeply transformative over time. Marceline's forgotten threads continue to emphasize introspection and memory. One draft imagines her encountering echoes of lost music, melodies that she cannot fully remember but feel intimately familiar. These fragments of song guide her through landscapes that shift with emotion, teaching lessons about acceptance, nostalgia, and the passage of time. Early notes describe moments where she pauses to listen to the wind, to the rustling of leaves, or to the faint laughter of unseen companions, all conveying a sense of quiet reflection. These arcs were intended to reveal the depth of her character gradually, showing that her strength and playfulness are inseparable from her capacity for longing and tenderness. Princess Bubblegum's story threads often explore her intellectual and moral growth in understated ways. In some drafts, she encounters ethical dilemmas where the right choice is subtle and nuanced, requiring reflection rather than action. Sketches suggest moments where she experiments with magical or scientific phenomena that have unintended but gentle consequences, prompting soft contemplation and learning. These arcs reflect a recurring theme in Adventure Time. Curiosity, knowledge, and kindness must coexist with patience and reflection. BB's journey is not one of instant solutions or dramatic victories, but of gradual understanding, self-awareness, and the quiet stewardship of her world. Ice King's Forgotten Threads explore his humanity with profound subtlety. Drafts suggest arcs where he inadvertently touches the lives of others in small, tender ways, even as he wanders alone. He might help a creature caught in a frozen pond, or leave a magical artifact that offers guidance long after he has passed. These gentle acts are layered with melancholy, emphasizing that even characters often cast as eccentric or antagonistic carry a quiet, moral resonance. The arcs encourage empathy, inviting the audience to perceive Ice King not simply as a comic figure, but as someone navigating loss, memory, and identity in slow, reflective increments. Some of the most intriguing threads involve intersections of characters where relationships evolve over time in soft, almost imperceptible ways. Finn and Jake's bond is examined not only through adventure, but through shared quiet experiences, resting beneath trees, listening to distant music, or watching sunsets over distant mountains. Marceline and PB share fleeting moments of recognition and subtle connection, a gentle tension that underscores shared histories without drama. Ice King occasionally crosses paths with other characters in drafts that suggest mutual recognition, brief understanding, or quiet assistance. These threads were designed to unfold gradually, like the slow blooming of a flower, rewarding patience and careful attention rather than immediate resolution. Early drafts also hint at arcs exploring the passage of time and the persistence of history in ancient ruins, forgotten relics, and subtle environmental changes are used to reflect how events leave traces long after they occur. Finn might return to a previously visited village to find new growth, while Jake notices the slow shift in a forest or river. Marceline may encounter remnants of her past music drifting in the wind, and PB might study artifacts that subtly guide her future choices. These arcs emphasize continuity, memory, and reflection, showing that even in a whimsical world, time moves with purpose and care. Perhaps most beautifully, these forgotten threads demonstrate a profound attentiveness to emotion, atmosphere, and the gentle interplay between character and environment. Humor is soft, often arising from observation rather than chaos, while conflict is subtle, arising from curiosity, miscommunication, or gentle challenges. The world itself is an active participant, responding to gestures, emotions, and choices in ways that are quiet but resonant. Trees bend to observe, streams murmur with guidance, and shadows shift in acknowledgement of the character's presence. Adventure Time, in these early threads, is a symphony of subtlety, a space where story arcs can ripple quietly, teaching lessons of empathy, reflection, and connection without the need for spectacle. As we wander further along these forgotten threads, we begin to see how they intertwine subtle lessons with quiet moments of wonder. One draft imagines a sequence where Finn and Jake traverse a series of floating islands, each imbued with a gentle magic that reflects aspects of their own inner selves. One island stretches with time, allowing them to see echoes of past adventures or glimpses of the choices they did not take. Another island bends with emotion, responding softly to their feelings, casting shifting shadows and illuminating paths with muted, magical light. These sequences were designed to unfold slowly, almost hypnotically, giving viewers a chance to breathe, observe, and reflect alongside the characters. Marceline's Forgotten Threads continued to explore the interplay between memory and emotion. In one arc, she moves through an abandoned city overrun with nature, where buildings hum faintly with the echoes of past lives. Ghostly fragments of conversation and music drift through the streets, creating a layered, almost dreamlike atmosphere. Marceline interacts with these echoes quietly, allowing moments of joy, sorrow, and curiosity to linger. She pauses to strum her bass gently, harmonizing with the lingering energy of the city, creating a delicate conversation between the living and the remembered. These arcs highlight her depth, her capacity for introspection, and the subtle ways she influences and interacts with her environment. Princess Bubblegum's early threads often focus on subtle experiments and the ethical consequences of knowledge. One draft imagines her creating a series of small magical devices intended to assist citizens of the Candy Kingdom, only to discover that the results are unpredictable in gentle, unforeseen ways. Finn and Jake occasionally help her navigate these situations, not as heroes facing great danger, but as companions observing, learning, and adapting. The arcs emphasize patience, reflection, and the importance of noticing details that might otherwise go unseen. They also gently underline PB's intelligence and empathy, showing that wisdom is as much about understanding the subtle currents of a situation as it is about action. Ice King's Forgotten Threads offers some of the most poignant reflections on identity and time. In certain drafts, he follows traces of Simon Petrikov's memory, encountering ruins, objects, and even animals that trigger faint recollections. These encounters are small and understated. A child's toy buried in snow, a faint echo of a song, a crystal glimmering in the dark. But together they slowly reconstruct his sense of self. The arcs are carefully paced, revealing the complexity of his character with patience rather than force. Even moments of humor are softened by reflection, as his eccentricity emerges not as comic relief alone, but as a nuanced, deeply human layer of his personality. Many of these forgotten threads explore the quiet power of small choices and gentle consequences. Finn might help a creature repair its home, unknowingly triggering a subtle chain of events that reshapes a forest glade over the course of days or weeks. Jake might comfort a frightened animal, and his actions ripple through a stream or river, altering its course ever so slightly. Marceline's songs might awaken latent memories in ancient trees, while PB's experiments slowly reshape portions of the Candy Kingdom in unexpected but harmless ways. Even Ice King's wandering, seemingly aimless actions leave tender imprints on the world. These arcs emphasize that even the smallest gestures have resonance, that Ooh is sensitive, perceptive, and alive in quiet ways. One particularly enchanting set of drafts centers on the concept of seasonal change. Finn and Jake might traverse a landscape where the seasons shift fluidly from one area to another, each region reflecting different emotional tones. Spring embodies curiosity and new beginnings. Summer hums with gentle warmth and exploration. Autumn whispers of reflection and melancholy, and winter carries soft solitude and introspection. As they move through these shifting realms, they encounter subtle challenges, quiet lessons, and small moments of beauty. The arcs were intended to mirror the natural rhythms of life and emotion, providing a backdrop that encourages slow observation, deep reflection, and gentle wonder. Interwoven among these arcs are delicate explorations of friendship, memory, and identity. Drafts hint at moments where Finn confronts his own fears. Jake tests the limits of his empathy. Marceline reconciles with lingering echoes of past joy and sorrow. PB evaluates the implications of her knowledge and leadership, and Ice King glimpses fragments of his lost self. None of these moments are forced or melodramatic. Instead, they unfold quietly, allowing viewers to drift alongside the characters and feel the soft resonance of each interaction. It is a careful orchestration of narrative and atmosphere, where the emphasis is on subtlety, presence, and reflection. These forgotten threads of story arcs ultimately reveal the gentle ambition of Adventure Time's creators to craft a world that is as alive emotionally and philosophically as it is visually. They remind us that even in a universe filled with magic, humor, and adventure, there is room for quiet contemplation, for patient observation, and for stories that unfold like whispers. Ooh becomes more than a setting. It becomes a living narrative, responsive to its inhabitants, capable of nurturing reflection, curiosity, and wonder in those who move through it gently. As we wander the final reaches of these forgotten threads, we begin to see the full tapestry of possibility that Adventure Time once held in its earliest drafts. These arcs are not defined by dramatic climaxes or explosive confrontations. Instead, they thrive in the subtle, quiet moments where the world and its characters interact in soft, meaningful ways. Finn walking through a forest where leaves shimmer with faint memories, Jake stretching to bridge moments of emotional distance, Marceline pausing to listen to the lingering echoes of her own music, PB observing quietly the gentle outcomes of her experiments, and Ice King tracing the faint imprints of his lost humanity. All these small actions together form a complex, delicate weave, invisible at first glance, but profound in their cumulative effect. One of the more fascinating forgotten arcs involves a subtle exploration of the interconnectedness of all life in Ooh. Early drafts describe Finn noticing patterns in the clouds, shapes of animals that seem to echo real-life creatures he encounters, or ripples in ponds that reflect not just his own image, but faint glimpses of distant events. Jake's magical elasticity allows him to sense the subtle vibrations in the air, responding with instinctive gestures that comfort and guide. Marceline's music, PB's experiments, and even Ice King's wandering inadvertently create harmonics that influence the land, guiding growth, revealing hidden paths, or awakening quiet memories. These arcs suggest that Ooh itself is alive in a reflective, contemplative sense, a character in its own right, gently steering the inhabitants toward reflection and growth. In some drafts, the story arcs explore the consequences of choice in deeply subtle ways. Finn may decide to help a creature rebuild a home or to leave it be, each choice echoing softly through the environment. Jake stretches to assist, his movements resonating with the land and the other creatures around him. Marceline's songs awaken long-forgotten memories in quiet corners of Ooh, and PB's experiments subtly shift the dynamics of her kingdom. Ice King's interactions, often accidental, leave traces of kindness or recognition, creating a chain of gentle consequences that ripple through the land. These arcs emphasize that even the smallest actions can have enduring resonance, teaching viewers to notice, reflect, and appreciate the quiet impact of every gesture. Some arcs hint at deeper existential reflection without ever becoming heavy or oppressive. Finn and Jake may drift through forests where shadows move independently, rivers that hum faintly, and ruins that whisper stories from centuries past. Marceline wanders glades where music and memory intermingle, encountering echoes of those she has known or loved. PB evaluates the moral subtleties of her choices with quiet care, and Ice King confronts fragments of Simon Petrikov in soft, fleeting moments. Each interaction is gentle, each realization understated, creating a rhythm of observation, wonder, and reflection that mirrors the ebb and flow of thought itself. The arcs also explore the fluidity of time, both narratively and emotionally. Finn witnesses forests and villages slowly change, seasons shift, and relationships evolve in subtle, patient increments. Jake observes the gentle stretching and transformation of the land, sensing the soft pulse of change. Marceline experiences memories that loop and shift, sometimes lingering, sometimes fading. PB learns through small, incremental consequences rather than dramatic revelation, and Ice King glimpses moments of his past, piecing together fragments without haste. Time, in these forgotten threads, is not a rigid structure but a flowing, malleable river, allowing stories to unfold at a contemplative, dreamlike pace. Humor and whimsy are woven into these arcs with tenderness. Characters experience gentle misunderstandings, minor mishaps, or playful curiosities that elicit soft smiles rather than loud laughter. Finn might trip over a glowing root. Jake might stretch into a comically exaggerated shape. Marceline may interact with mischievous forest spirits, and PB might tinker with an experiment that spins in unpredictable but harmless ways. Ice King, as always, offers subtle comic relief, though often tinged with melancholy, emphasizing the multifaceted, reflective humor that pervades Ooh. These moments of lightness balance the introspection, creating a rhythm that is soothing, engaging, and perfect for bedtime contemplation. Ultimately, these forgotten threads reveal Adventure Time as a world designed to encourage gentle observation, reflection, and wonder. They show a series of story arcs that reward patience and attentiveness, that unfold slowly, softly, and with emotional resonance. The land itself is alive, responsive, and full of quiet mysteries, allowing the characters, and through them, the audience, to experience a universe that is rich, layered, and endlessly fascinating. Every interaction, choice, and gesture matters, rippling through Ooh in delicate, almost imperceptible ways. As we trace these arcs to their gentle conclusions, it becomes clear that Adventure Time's heart lies not in spectacle alone, but in the quiet intimacy of its narrative design. Even the arcs that were never realized, sketches that never became episodes, or threads that faded into drafts, carry a soft, enduring magic. They remind us that storytelling is as much about subtlety, observation, and reflection as it is about action, adventure, or humor. These forgotten threads are a lullaby for the imagination, guiding viewers to pause, breathe, and sink slowly into the layered, enchanting world of Ooh. In this quiet contemplation, we begin to understand that even the unseen, the unmade, and the abandoned stories have a gentle resonance. They are whispers of possibility, delicate invitations to imagine, reflect, and wander softly through a world that never ceases to breathe, respond, and inspire. Ooh, in all its realized and unrealized forms, becomes a space where curiosity, empathy, and gentle wonder guide every step, every interaction, and every heartbeat of adventure. Tonight, as we drift quietly deeper into the hidden corners of Adventure Time, we explore the visions that first dance through Pendleton Ward's mind. These are the secret early ideas, the whispering concepts that hinted at the series' infinite possibilities long before they were fully realized. They are not always complete stories or finished episodes, but sketches of dreams, delicate outlines of worlds, characters, and emotions that might have been. They speak to a quieter, more reflective side of Adventure Time, a version that lingers at the edge of imagination, inviting us to follow its gentle currents. Pendleton Ward's initial sketches were imbued with a playful curiosity that never overshadowed introspection. Early notebooks and concept art reveal a fascination with landscapes that feel alive, spaces that breathe and respond to the characters within them. Hills might bend subtly to watch, rivers might hum faintly with memory, and trees could whisper soft guidance. In these visions, Ooh is never static. It is an organic, responsive companion. Characters interact with their world in quiet, meaningful ways, observing and learning from it, rather than imposing themselves upon it. Finn's adventures are exploratory and reflective. Jake's magic is as much about empathy as it is about fun. Marceline moves between memory and the present with gentle grace, and Princess Bubblegum experiments with knowledge in ways that are both thoughtful and ethically delicate. Even Ice King's eccentricity is shaded with tenderness, his actions revealing a layered, deeply human character beneath the eccentric exterior. One of Pendleton Ward's secret visions included a soft, dreamlike ooh, where time flows unevenly, sometimes stretching infinitely in quiet valleys and condensing in mysterious groves. Draft notes describe sequences in which Finn and Jake wander through regions where minutes and hours behave like malleable elements, where a single interaction might ripple across days, subtly changing the landscape or the lives of the creatures who inhabit it. These visions were designed to feel meditative rather than urgent, a slow exploration of cause and effect, observation, and the quiet beauty of everyday moments. The narrative flows like a gentle river, carrying viewers alongside characters as they notice, interact, and reflect. Another vision reveals O as a series of overlapping realities, hints of worlds that coexist in soft parallel. Early sketches suggest that Finn might encounter alternate versions of himself, each shaped by small, gentle differences in circumstance or choice. Jake's form adapts subtly in these realities, reflecting the nuances of each version of Ooh he and Finn explore. The stories emphasize reflection over action, inviting contemplation on the paths not taken, and the quiet ways small decisions shape identity. These secret visions offer a subtle meditation on possibility, encouraging viewers to imagine a world that is endlessly fluid, malleable, and alive in its responsiveness. Marceline's role in these visions is particularly ethereal. Draft sketches depict her moving through abandoned concert halls, forests, and glades where music and memory intermingle. Notes describe soft harmonics, ghostly echoes, and melodies that carry fragments of joy and sorrow alike. She interacts with these elements gently, not to dominate, but to harmonize. The stories are slow and reflective, emphasizing her capacity to observe, feel, and influence the world through subtle, emotional resonance. Marceline's character in these secret visions embodies the balance of whimsy, melancholy, and tenderness that Pendleton Ward envisioned as central to the tone of Adventure Time. Princess Bubblegum's early sketches explore curiosity, intelligence, and quiet moral reflection. Drafts suggest that she would encounter minor ethical dilemmas, navigate unforeseen consequences of her experiments, and observe the soft, intricate interconnections of life in the Candy Kingdom. Her narrative is less about dramatic confrontation and more about introspection, observation, and responsible experimentation. Each decision she makes carries subtle consequences, gently shaping the kingdom and revealing the quiet rhythms of cause and effect. These secret visions of PB reveal Pendleton Ward's intent to create characters whose growth is both intellectual and emotional, unfolding gradually across the contours of the story. Even the Ice King's early visions are tinged with quiet complexity. Drafts depict him interacting with the world in seemingly accidental yet profoundly tender ways. He might leave helpful artifacts behind, create soft, magical effects unintentionally, or stumble into moments of connection with other characters. These visions hint at the layered humanity behind his eccentricity, showing that even in moments of mischief or isolation, there is space for vulnerability, reflection, and the gentle ripple of kindness. The arcs unfold with patience, highlighting that even flawed characters contribute to the soft harmony of Ooh. Pendleton Ward's secret visions also extend to the environments themselves. Sketches depict skies that shift with emotion, clouds that bend and dance, rivers that hum with faint echoes of the past, and ruins that whisper stories of forgotten civilizations. These elements are not merely backdrops, but active participants in the unfolding narrative. Characters respond to them, are guided by them, and learn from their subtle cues. The land of Ooh, in these early sketches, is as alive as its inhabitants, carrying soft lessons, gentle challenges, and quiet opportunities for reflection. In these visions, humor is delicate, arising naturally from observation and interaction, rather than chaos or spectacle. Finn might trip over a luminescent root. Jake might stretch comically to comfort a creature. Marceline's music might evoke soft, unintended consequences, and PB's experiments may produce unexpected, though gentle, outcomes. Even Ice King's eccentricities often carry both humor and melancholy, offering quiet moments of levity alongside subtle reflection. The balance of softness, humor, and thoughtfulness is what makes Pendleton Ward's visions so uniquely enchanting, perfectly suited for a bedtime exploration of imagination. As we float further into Pendleton Ward's secret visions, it becomes clear that they were not limited to individual characters or single episodes. Early sketches hint at interconnected storylines that flow like soft currents beneath the surface of Ooh, weaving relationships, choices, and subtle consequences together in ways that reward patience and gentle observation. One such vision imagines Finn and Jake wandering through a valley where echoes of their past actions manifest as faint glimmers in the landscape. Trees bend slightly to recall previous encounters, rivers ripple with memories of small kindnesses, and clouds drift in shapes that hint at events they have experienced but barely noticed. These drafts capture a quiet rhythm, a soft interweaving of time, memory, and consequence, reminding us that the smallest gestures can leave the deepest impressions. Marceline's secret visions continue to emphasize the intimate dialogue between memory, emotion, and environment. One draft depicts her entering a glade where shadows move independently, reflecting the emotions of anyone who passes through. As she strums her bass softly, these shadows respond with subtle movements, forming ephemeral patterns that tell stories of joy, loss, and longing. These early visions were designed to immerse viewers in a world where emotional resonance flows as naturally as physical movement. Marceline becomes both participant and observer, demonstrating that reflection and subtlety can carry as much weight as action or spectacle. Princess Bubblegum's arcs in these early visions often explore the interplay of curiosity, ethics, and quiet experimentation. Draft notes describe PB gently manipulating small magical or scientific phenomena in order to learn about the world and its inhabitants, observing effects that unfold gradually over days or weeks. Finn and Jake accompany her on these journeys, providing a lens of empathy, intuition, and playful interaction. The emphasis is not on dramatic confrontation, but on patient exploration, careful observation, and the gentle unfolding of understanding. These visions highlight Ward's attention to the moral and intellectual growth of his characters, suggesting that adventure need not always be loud to be meaningful. Ice King's secret visions are layered with quiet poignancy. Early sketches hint at sequences where he stumbles upon fragments of Simon Petrikov's memory embedded in the landscape. A frozen pond might reflect a fleeting echo of the past. A snow-laden tower might hum with faint recognition, or a discarded artifact may spark a moment of unspoken connection. These arcs are subtle and reflective, allowing viewers to feel the weight of history and the tenderness of small acts of remembrance. Even his comedic moments are softened with introspection, revealing the depth of his character while maintaining the playful, whimsical tone that defines Ooh. Some of Ward's visions explore entirely new dimensions of Ooh. Drafts describe landscapes that flow like liquid, forests that rearrange themselves, and skies that mirror the emotional state of the characters below. Finn and Jake navigate these spaces with curiosity and wonder, experiencing minor, whimsical challenges that are designed to teach empathy, reflection, and observation rather than create tension. Marceline's music might interact with the fluid terrain, harmonizing with the environment in ways that subtly shift it. PB's experiments can yield unpredictable yet gentle results, and even Ice King's wandering can influence these landscapes in soft, surprising ways. These concepts illustrate Ward's fascination with a world that responds organically to thought, emotion, and action. Humor in these secret visions is always intertwined with reflection. Finn may find himself in absurd situations, such as chasing a floating musical note that refuses to settle, or mistaking a harmless creature for a threat. Jake's elastic form lends itself to comical, inventive solutions that are gentle rather than chaotic. Marceline's songs might inadvertently create humorous echoes, while PB's experiments sometimes spiral into softly amusing outcomes that require patience and observation. Even Ice King's eccentricities contribute a layered comedy, simultaneously playful, melancholic, and tender. These nuances create a balance between whimsy and introspection, a hallmark of Ward's vision. Pendleton. Ward's secret visions also explore the quiet dynamics of relationships across Ooh. Early drafts depict Finn and Marceline sharing gentle companionship as they wander forests or watch sunsets, moments that emphasize curiosity and trust. Bea and Marceline interact through subtle gestures, exchanges of knowledge, and the shared recognition of past experiences. Jake and Finn's bond is portrayed in tender, reflective ways, often through quiet observation, shared laughter, or small acts of comfort. Ice King's interactions, though fleeting, reveal glimpses of understanding, recognition, and soft connection, emphasizing that even transient relationships can carry lasting emotional resonance. Through these early visions, Ooh itself becomes a living, breathing presence. Rivers whisper with memory, mountains hum with faint echoes of the past, and forests respond to gestures, music, and emotion. Characters move through the world in harmony with its rhythms, learning, observing, and reflecting. Ward's sketches convey a sense of quiet immersion, where even the smallest details, the shimmer of a leaf, the hum of a stone, the ripple of water, contribute to the narrative and emotional texture. Adventure Time, in its earliest conception, was a universe designed not only to entertain, but to gently guide viewers into reflection, empathy, and wonder. As we wander deeper into Pendleton Ward's secret visions, it becomes evident that these sketches are not just about individual adventures. They are meditative explorations of the nature of connection, consequence, and quiet wonder. One early concept envisions Finn and Jake entering a valley where echoes of past actions manifest in subtle ways. Flowers bloom in the patterns of their previous choices, shadows trace gestures long since made, and streams carry faint reflections of forgotten conversations. These arcs encourage the audience to notice the imperceptible ripples left by action, observation, and intention, reinforcing the notion that Ulu is a world alive with memory and resonance. Marceline's secret visions continued to explore the interplay of memory, music, and emotional reflection. One draft imagines her walking through an abandoned amphitheater, where remnants of past performances linger in the air like gentle ghosts. Each note she plays awakens fragments of memory within the space, forming faint, ephemeral shapes that drift through the empty seats. She interacts with these remnants delicately, guiding, observing, and harmonizing with them. This sequence illustrates Ward's fascination with the ways music, memory, and environment intertwine, showing that even subtle actions can carry profound emotional weight in the world of O. Princess Bubblegum's arcs in these visions often emphasize the delicate balance between curiosity, knowledge, and ethics. Early sketches depict her designing small, magical, or scientific experiments that unfold slowly over time, producing gentle consequences rather than immediate spectacle. Finn and Jake accompany her on these explorations, observing and interacting with the subtle outcomes of her experiments. The narrative unfolds meditatively, highlighting the importance of patience, attention to detail, and reflection on cause and effect. These arcs suggest that Ward intended Adventure Time to be as much about learning and discovery as it is about adventure or humor, inviting viewers to engage thoughtfully with the world and its characters. Ice King's secret visions are equally rich, blending humor with quiet poignancy. Drafts describe moments where he inadvertently impacts the world in tender ways, rescuing a trapped creature, leaving a small artifact that guides another character, or inadvertently uncovering a fragment of his lost humanity. These moments are understated yet deeply affecting, providing insight into his layered personality. Even in his more eccentric behaviors, there is a careful exploration of loneliness, longing, and the desire for connection, framed within a soft, reflective narrative that allows viewers to empathize without urgency or conflict. Some visions explore entirely new realms within U, places where the environment itself behaves like a conscious entity. Forests shift gently as characters move through them, rivers hum with memory, and clouds form patterns that echo past or future events. Finn and Jake navigate these landscapes with the curiosity, encountering challenges that are subtle, playful, or contemplative. Marceline's music interacts with the surroundings, guiding and responding to the environment, while PB's experiments create small ripples that alter the behavior of magical phenomena. Ice King's wandering presence adds moments of unpredictability and reflection, showing that even seemingly chaotic elements contribute to the larger harmony of U. Humor in these visions is intertwined with tenderness and reflection. Finn may stumble into whimsical scenarios. Jake may stretch himself into improbable shapes to comfort or assist. Marceline's songs may inadvertently cause playful reactions, and PB's experiments sometimes spiral into softly amusing results. Ice King's eccentricities provide layered comedy, simultaneously whimsical, melancholic, and gentle. Ward's sketches demonstrate a remarkable ability to blend humor with introspection, creating a world that is both entertaining and quietly thought-provoking. Relationships in these secret visions are explored with subtlety and depth. Finn and Marceline share quiet moments of trust, observation, and shared discovery, while PB and Marceline exchange gestures of recognition and understanding. Finn and Jake's bond is highlighted through reflection, shared observation, and small acts of kindness. Ice King occasionally encounters fleeting moments of connection with other characters, emphasizing that even brief or unintended interactions can carry emotional weight. These threads suggest Ward's vision of Ooh as a space where empathy, observation, and gentle curiosity shape the way characters grow and interact. Pendleton Ward's secret visions also depict the passage of time in reflective, flexible ways. Forests slowly change, villages evolve, and landscapes shift subtly in response to character action. Finn experiences time both linearly and in soft, looping sequences, noticing patterns and echoes in the world around him. Jake senses the rhythm of change, responding with empathy and adaptation. Marceline reflects on past experiences. PB contemplates the gradual consequences of her choices, and Ice King uncovers fragments of memory in fleeting, poignant moments. Time becomes a fluid, contemplative element, allowing stories to unfold at a pace that mirrors the gentle flow of thought and observation. These early visions reveal that Adventure Time, even in its secret sketches, was always intended to be immersive, reflective, and emotionally nuanced. Ward imagined a world where the environment, characters, and narrative are intertwined in quiet, meaningful ways. Each choice, gesture, and observation ripples through Ooh gently, creating a layered, responsive universe. The balance of humor, reflection, emotion, and wonder in these visions illustrates the subtle brilliance of Ward's creative mind and the enduring magic of the world he first imagined. As we drift toward the final depths of Pendleton Ward's secret visions, the scope of his imagination becomes breathtaking in its subtlety. These sketches were not simply ideas for adventures. They were meditations on the relationships between characters, the quiet pulse of Ooh, and the delicate interplay between action and consequence. One draft describes a glade where every movement of Finn and Jake produces ripples in the surrounding environment. A leaf floats to reveal a hidden path, a stone hums faintly with memory, and a small creek rearranges itself in response to laughter, conversation, or quiet contemplation. These sequences illustrate Ward's intent to make Ooh not just a setting, but a living participant in the stories, responsive and reflective, offering lessons and wonder without force or urgency. Marceline's presence in these visions is particularly ethereal. One early sketch depicts her wandering through a twilight forest where shadows sway independently, responding to subtle emotions in the air. Her music interacts with these shadows, creating delicate, shifting patterns of light and sound. Each note she plays gently alters the forest, revealing hidden glades, whispering stories, or coaxing memories from the earth itself. The draft suggests that Marceline's character was meant to serve as a bridge between memory and presence, reflection and action. Her role is quiet, almost ghost-like, yet deeply integral, demonstrating the power of gentle observation and emotional resonance in shaping the world around her. Princess Bubblegum's secret visions explore ethics, knowledge, and the weight of responsibility with patient subtlety. Early drafts suggest she experiments with magical and scientific phenomena, observing their gradual effects on the Candy Kingdom. Finn and Jake often accompany her, witnessing the delicate consequences of her choices unfold over time. These arcs emphasize reflection and attentiveness rather than spectacle, showing that even the smallest action can carry significance. Ward's sketches convey a desire to craft stories where intellect, empathy, and patience are as heroic as combat or overt adventure, teaching viewers to consider the quiet, nuanced impact of their own choices. Ice King in these secret visions continues to blend humor with gentle melancholy. Drafts depict him wandering through abandoned ruins, interacting with the remnants of past civilizations, or discovering small, forgotten artifacts. Each encounter is understated yet resonant, revealing glimpses of Simon Petrikov beneath the eccentric surface. Even his mistakes and quirks are softened by reflection, allowing audiences to sense his humanity and the delicate interplay of memory, loss, and whimsy that define him. These arcs emphasize Ward's skill in balancing comedy and poignancy, creating characters whose complexity emerges gradually and quietly. Many of these visions explore the gentle consequences of choice and action. Finn might decide to follow a glimmering path through a forest or let it pass unnoticed. Jake might stretch to bridge a subtle emotional gap. Marceline's songs may awaken echoes of forgotten stories. PB's experiments gently influence the land and its inhabitants, and Ice King's wandering gestures leave faint, tender imprints. Every decision, every movement, produces ripples in ooh, emphasizing that the world itself is alive, attentive, and responsive. These arcs are designed to be meditative, encouraging viewers to notice the subtle, beautiful details that shape the narrative in the world. Ward's visions also explore the fluidity of time. Forests grow and recede, rivers change course, and villages evolve at a reflective, deliberate pace. Characters experience both linear and looping sequences of time, observing patterns, echoes, and subtle transformations. Finn sees the cumulative effects of his actions. Jake senses the emotional flow of the land. Marceline interacts with memory as a tangible presence. PB contemplates the ethical ripple of experiments, and Ice King encounters fragments of past and present interwoven delicately. Time is not a strict metric, but a contemplative element, allowing the stories to unfold like a slow, breathing lullaby. Humor in these visions is gentle and reflective, arising naturally from character interaction and environment rather than chaotic spectacle. Finn might chase a luminous, floating creature through the forest. Jake might contort into whimsical shapes to comfort someone. Marceline's music may evoke playful echoes. PB's experiments may produce unexpected but harmless results. And Ice King's eccentricities blend comedy with subtle emotional insight. The balance of humor, reflection, and wonder is designed to soothe and engage simultaneously, perfect for bedtime storytelling. Relationships in these secret visions are woven with care and subtlety. Finn and Marceline share quiet companionship and gentle trust. PB and Marceline exchange unspoken understanding. Finn and Jake's bond is highlighted through observation and small acts of empathy, and even fleeting encounters with Ice King carry emotional weight. Ward's early drafts suggest that ooh is a space where connection is cultivated not through drama or spectacle, but through gentle attention, curiosity, and empathy. Ultimately, Pendleton Ward's secret visions reveal Adventure Time as a meditation on the delicate balance of whimsy, reflection, and emotional resonance. The sketches and drafts are invitations to explore a world where every gesture, every note of music, every ripple in a pond, and every quiet interaction shapes the landscape, the characters, and the viewer's imagination. These visions embody the soft magic of possibility, showing us that even the unseen, the abandoned, or the quietly imagined stories carry resonance, offering a gentle, dreamlike journey through a universe that is endlessly alive, observant, and tender. Through these secret visions, we understand that adventure time was always meant to be more than adventure alone. It is a universe that invites contemplation, empathy, and quiet wonder. The soft ripple of each choice, the tender echo of every emotion, and the gentle pulse of the world itself guide viewers through a narrative that unfolds slowly, patiently, and beautifully. In Pendleton Ward's mind, Ooh was not only a playground of imagination, but a reflective, breathing universe, one that continues to whisper its magic long after the episodes have ended. As we settle deeper into our cozy corner of O tonight, we begin to explore the echoes of endings that never were, paths the story could have taken, and gentle what-ifs that linger like soft fading music. Alternate endings are like whispered possibilities, delicate threads that dangle just out of reach, inviting the imagination to wander. They hint at different resolutions, tender conclusions, or quietly divergent journeys for our beloved characters, showing us that adventure time could have been endlessly varied, yet always profoundly reflective. One early vision imagines Finn's journey concluding not with a singular climactic moment, but through a series of quiet revelations spread over time. He might walk through forests where the shadows of past adventures shimmer faintly on the mossy ground, noticing subtle transformations in the land and the lives of its inhabitants. Villages he had once helped flourish gently, forests he had wandered ripple softly with memory, and creatures he aided carry echoes of their shared experiences. These endings emphasize reflection and observation rather than spectacle, suggesting that growth, empathy, and understanding are as significant as any battle or dramatic confrontation. Finn's heroism, in these alternate conclusions, is measured not in feats of strength, but in the soft resonance of his actions and choices. Jake's alternate endings follow a similar path of introspection and subtle influence. In some drafts, his magical elasticity becomes a metaphor for adaptability and emotional presence. Jake stretches not to fight or escape, but to comfort, connect, and observe, his transformations reflecting the needs and emotions of those around him. He might take on shapes that mirror the feelings of other characters, act as a gentle bridge between their experiences, or create safe spaces within the landscape for quiet reflection. These visions show that even a character defined by whimsical power can be understood as a vessel for empathy, patience, and subtle guidance, shaping the world in quiet but meaningful ways. Marceline's alternate endings often explore memory, music, and the passage of time with tender subtlety. One draft envisions her playing a soft melody in an abandoned concert hall, each note resonating with faint echoes of the past, illuminating long-forgotten paths and rekindling memories of joy, loss, and connection. Her interactions are never forced. She listens as much as she performs, allowing the environment and the echoes within it to respond naturally. These endings emphasize that reflection, understanding, and emotional resonance are as vital to the story as any grand adventure, offering viewers a calm, meditative space in which to contemplate the weight of memory and the soft pull of nostalgia. Princess Bubblegum's alternate endings often dwell in quiet moral and intellectual reflection. In one vision, PB's final acts involve carefully observing the outcomes of her long-term experiments, noting the subtle ways her choices have influenced the Candy Kingdom and the wider world. Finn and Jake accompany her not as agents of action, but as companions who share in the gentle discovery of these outcomes. The focus is on observation, ethical reflection, and the layered, interconnected consequences of curiosity and intelligence. PB's alternate conclusions suggest a world in which wisdom, patience, and attentiveness are as heroic as combat, shaping Ooh through knowledge and empathy rather than force. Ice King's alternate endings carry a tender, melancholic beauty. Draft suggests sequences in which he finally glimpses the lingering fragments of Simon Petrikov, understanding them without the need for dramatic revelation or reconciliation. He may leave artifacts or small gestures of kindness that echo quietly through Ooh, showing that even eccentricity and isolation can produce gentle, lasting impact. These endings emphasize the layered humanity of a character often regarded as comic or tragic, portraying him with subtlety and depth where humor and pathos coexist in soft harmony. Some alternate endings explore the interconnectedness of the world itself. Early drafts describe Ooh as a space that responds to character choices and interactions in delicate, reflective ways. Finn might notice faint ripples in the grass marking his prior journeys. Jake might sense emotional patterns in the landscape. Marceline might harmonize with environmental echoes through music. PB might observe the slow, unfolding consequences of her scientific and magical experiments, and Ice King might leave soft imprints of past kindnesses. These endings suggest the universe that is alive, observant, and responsive, where every gesture carries resonance and reflection is as important as adventure. Time in these alternate conclusions is flexible and contemplative. Forests grow and shrink subtly. Rivers adjust their courses, and villages evolve quietly, reflecting the cumulative effects of character actions. Characters experience the flow of days and seasons, noticing patterns, echoes, and transformations. Finn and Jake may revisit familiar landscapes, observing the gentle ripple of past choices. Marceline may retrace her musical footsteps. PB may study the long-term consequences of her experiments, and Ice King may encounter fragments of memory in fleeting, quiet moments. Time becomes a reflective, almost dreamlike element, allowing the endings to unfold in a soothing, meditative rhythm rather than a climactic burst. Humor in these visions remains gentle and layered. Finn may find himself in lightly absurd situations. Jake may stretch into playful shapes that comfort or entertain. Marceline's music may evoke whimsical responses. PB's experiments may produce softly unexpected results, and Ice King's eccentricities blend levity with subtle emotional depth. Even in these conclusions, humor serves not as spectacle, but as gentle reflection, softening the narrative while maintaining the emotional resonance and contemplative atmosphere Ward envisioned. Relationships in these alternate endings are explored with delicate, understated attention. Finn and Marceline share quiet moments of trust and observation. PB and Marceline exchange subtle gestures of understanding. Finn and Jake's bond continues to evolve through reflection and gentle action. And Ice King's interactions leave faint but meaningful impressions. Ward's early drafts suggest that the emotional threads between characters are as vital to the story as the narrative events themselves, allowing viewers to feel the soft weight of connection, empathy, and understanding. As we drift further into these alternate endings, the landscapes of Ooh themselves take on a quiet, reflective presence. One vision imagines Finn walking through a meadow where flowers bloom in subtle response to his footsteps, leaves bending to reveal hidden glades, and streams carrying faint reflections of his past choices. Jake follows, stretching and shaping himself to interact gently with the environment, bridging gaps and creating spaces for contemplation. Marceline's music intertwines with the subtle shifts in light and shadow, and PB's observations gently guide the unfolding consequences of her careful experiments. Even Ice King, often wandering aimlessly, leaves traces of unexpected kindness, each gesture softly echoing through the land. These endings suggest a world alive with subtle cause and effect, where reflection and attentiveness are as meaningful as bold adventure. One early draft envisions a serene, reflective passage where Finn revisits locations from his earliest adventures. Forests he once explored shimmer faintly with memory, rivers hum with soft echoes, and creatures he helped now move with a quiet awareness of his past kindness. Each step he takes allows him to witness the soft unfolding of the world, a gentle reminder that every choice, no matter how small, has its own quiet resonance. Jake mirrors this experience, sensing the emotional currents in the air and responding with playful empathy. Together they move through Ooh like gentle observers, tracing the invisible threads that connect past actions to present realities. Marceline's alternate endings continue to highlight the subtle interplay of memory and presence. In one concept, she plays a melody that causes faint glimmers of past events to rise from the environment, shimmering like ghostly whispers. These echoes do not demand attention, but instead drift softly through the landscape, allowing Marceline and the viewer to notice them, reflect on them, and understand their quiet significance. Her songs harmonize with the natural rhythms of Ooh, illustrating Ward's vision of a world where music, memory, and emotion are intertwined, guiding the story not through dramatic force, but through reflection and subtle resonance. Princess Bubblegum's alternate conclusions often emphasize observation and responsibility. Drafts suggest that PB carefully reviews the outcomes of her long-term experiments, watching the Candy Kingdom evolve slowly and noting the soft influence of her decisions. Finn and Jake accompany her as companions and witnesses, highlighting the importance of shared observation and empathy. These endings suggest that knowledge, attentiveness, and moral reflection are as heroic as the most daring exploits, offering viewers a gentle meditation on responsibility and consequence. PB's quiet intelligence shapes Ooh in ways that are profoundly enduring yet unobtrusive, leaving the kingdom subtly transformed over time. Ice King's alternate endings carry an understated poignancy. Early drafts depict him discovering fragments of Simon Petrikoff's past in unexpected, gentle ways. A snow-laden tower humming a forgotten tune, a small artifact resonating with faint memory, or a fleeting echo of a lost conversation. These moments are quiet and reflective, allowing viewers to feel the weight of history and the tenderness of lingering humanity. Even his more whimsical actions are softened by introspection, demonstrating Ward's skill in blending humor with depth and showing that even eccentricity can coexist with subtle emotional resonance. Some drafts explore O as a space of interwoven consequences, where each action, gesture, or note of music carries subtle reverberations. Finn might notice faint patterns in the clouds reflecting past journeys. Jake might sense emotional ripples in the rivers. Marceline's melodies awaken echoes in ancient trees. PB observes the slow evolution of her magical and scientific creations, and Ice King leaves gentle traces of forgotten kindness. These endings suggest that Ooh is a living, responsive character itself, attentive to the choices and emotions of its inhabitants. The world listens, reacts, and reflects, creating a narrative that unfold slowly, patiently, and with emotional depth. Time, in these alternate conclusions, moves with a contemplative, almost dreamlike rhythm. Forests grow and shrink in subtle cycles. Rivers shift course, and villages evolve in quiet, thoughtful increments. Characters experience both linear progression and looping sequences, noticing patterns, echoes, and soft transformations in the environment. Finn observes the long-term consequences of his actions. Jake senses emotional harmonics in the land. Marceline interacts with musical memory as a tangible presence. PB evaluates the ongoing outcomes of her experiments, and Ice King glimpses fleeting fragments of past and present. Time is a gentle, reflective medium, guiding the narrative in a soothing, contemplative cadence rather than a sudden, dramatic arc. Humor in these endings is similarly layered and gentle. Finn may find himself in whimsical scenarios. Jake stretches into playful or comforting forms. Marceline's music may produce humorous echoes. PB's experiments occasionally spiral into soft, unexpected outcomes, and Ice King's eccentricity blends lightness with subtle emotional depth. These playful elements are never intrusive. They serve to soften the narrative while maintaining the reflective, meditative tone of the alternate endings. As we float further into these alternate endings, the gentle interweaving of character, environment, and emotion becomes more pronounced. One vision imagines Finn standing at the edge of a glimmering lake, its surface reflecting not only the sky above, but faint images of past adventures, moments of kindness, and choices that shaped the land. Each ripple in the water mirrors a decision, a smile, or an act of courage. Jake stretches beside him, responding to the subtle currents in the water, his form flowing to reflect both protection and understanding. Marceline's song drifts through the scene, harmonizing with the quiet resonance of the lake, and PB's observant eye notes how her long-term experiments have gently influenced the flow of life around them. Even Ice King appears in the distance, leaving small, unexpected signs of care that ripple softly through the land. In some alternate endings, time itself becomes an instrument of reflection. Forests age and renew almost imperceptibly. Rivers trace meandering paths shaped by countless gentle actions, and villages evolve under the soft guidance of those who inhabit them. Finn might wander through landscapes where seasons overlap, witnessing echoes of past adventures mingling with present experiences. Jake senses the subtle harmonics of the land, stretching to connect emotional currents between creatures, characters, and the environment. Marceline's music captures faint traces of history. PB's experiments continue their slow, quiet influence, and Ice King leaves delicate imprints of unintended kindness. In these endings, the passage of time is a soft, reflective rhythm, guiding the narrative like a lullaby rather than a crescendo. Marceline's alternate endings continue to highlight the interplay between memory and music. One draft depicts her entering a grove where faint echoes of past events hover in the air, each note she plays gently shaping the space. Shadows of previous encounters flutter across the ground, responding to the harmonics she creates. This vision allows Marceline and the viewer to experience a world alive with emotional resonance, where reflection and gentle action are as meaningful as adventure or conflict. Her role becomes one of quiet guidance, reminding us that observation, empathy, and the delicate interplay of memory and presence can be as powerful as any dramatic climax. Princess Bubblegum's arcs in these alternate endings often focus on ethical reflection and the subtle consequences of her curiosity. Draft sketches suggest sequences in which she observes the Candy Kingdom evolving, noting how each experiment has shaped the inhabitants and environment over time. Finn and Jake accompany her, not as agents of action, but as companions in quiet observation, witnessing the ripple effects of care, thoughtfulness, and attentiveness. These endings emphasize that heroism can be measured not only in dramatic feats, but in thoughtful, reflective actions that leave a gentle, lasting mark on the world. Ice King's alternate conclusions continue to balance humor with soft melancholy. Early drafts imagine him discovering remnants of Simon Petrikoff's memory embedded in subtle environmental cues, an abandoned tower, a snow-covered bridge, or a delicate artifact glinting in the light. Each encounter is understated, offering glimpses of understanding, kindness, and the tender humanity that lies beneath his eccentric exterior. Even his comical actions carry a quiet resonance, illustrating Ward's vision of a world where humor, reflection, and emotional depth coexist seamlessly. These alternate endings also explore the soft interconnections between all inhabitants of Ooh. Finn notices traces of his previous journeys in the movements of animals, the patterns of leaves, and the echoes in rivers. Jake senses emotional vibrations in the environment, stretching gently to harmonize with them. Marceline's music interacts with memory and landscape. PB observes and reflects upon the long-term consequences of her experiments, and Ice King leaves subtle imprints of kindness. Together, these threads create a delicate, interconnected web where every action matters, every moment resonates, and the world itself feels alive, responsive, and contemplative. Humor in these visions is tender and layered, arising naturally from interactions rather than spectacle. Finn may chase a floating glimmer through the trees. Jake may stretch into whimsically comforting shapes. Marceline's music may produce playful echoes. PB's experiments may yield softly amusing surprises. And Ice King's eccentricity provides layered levity tinged with emotion. The humor balances reflection and observation, offering gentle smiles without ever breaking the meditative rhythm of the narrative. Relationships in these alternate conclusions are explored with subtle care. Finn and Marceline share quiet, contemplative companionship. Tiate and Marceline exchange soft gestures of understanding. Finn and Jake's bond deepens through reflective action, and Ice King's fleeting encounters leave tender impressions. Ward's sketches suggest that the emotional threads between characters are as central to the narrative as any plot or spectacle, allowing viewers to sense the weight of connection, empathy, and reflection woven through Ooh. Time and consequence flow in harmony with the gentle tone of these endings. Forests, rivers, and villages all respond softly to the actions and choices of the characters, creating a living, breathing world that unfolds with patience and care. Finn's reflections on the cumulative impact of his actions, Jake's attunement to emotional harmonics, Marceline's musical guidance, PB's observation of long-term effects, and Ice King's subtle acts of kindness collectively illustrate a universe where reflection, empathy, and quiet wonder shape every moment. As we approach the final reflections of these alternate endings, the world of Ooh seems to breathe with a quiet, tender pulse. One vision imagines Finn standing atop a gentle hill at twilight, watching the soft glow of distant villages. He notices the faint traces of his own journey etched subtly into the landscape. Flowers blooming along familiar paths, trees bending in recognition, and streams carrying gentle whispers of past kindnesses. Jake rests beside him, stretching lazily yet perceptively, sensing the calm vibrations of the world and the feelings of those who inhabit it. The land itself seems alive, responsive, and patient, quietly acknowledging each decision, each act of empathy, and each small adventure that has unfolded over time. Marceline's presence in these final endings is as ethereal as it is grounding. She wanders through quiet forests and abandoned glades, her music drifting like soft starlight, illuminating memories woven into the earth. Each note evokes gentle echoes of joy, loss, and connection, harmonizing the present with the past. Shadows of old adventures flicker softly across the ground, creating a delicate tapestry of experience. Marceline moves through these moments with awareness and care, guiding the narrative with her reflective presence. Her role is subtle but profound, showing us that listening, observing, and harmonizing with the world can be as powerful as any heroic act. Princess Bubblegum's alternate conclusions emphasize observation, empathy, and responsibility. Drafts suggest she watches over the Candy Kingdom as it evolves, noting the long-term effects of her experiments and decisions. Finn and Jake accompany her not as catalysts for change, but as companions who witness and reflect upon these outcomes. Every choice she has made leaves a gentle imprint, every experiment a subtle ripple in the kingdom's fabric. These endings convey that the true measure of leadership and wisdom lies not in dramatic resolution, but in understanding, reflection, and patience. Qualities that guide the world quietly, yet meaningfully. Ice King's final visions are tender and poignant. He wanders through softly falling snow, encountering traces of Simon Petrikov's past in small, understated ways, frozen footprints, faint melodies in the wind, or the delicate alignment of stars overhead. Each fragment reveals a hint of humanity beneath the eccentric surface, offering moments of quiet connection and introspection. Even in his humor and folly, there is a sense of lingering empathy, subtle gestures, and soft impact on the lives around him. These endings show that even the most whimsical, isolated characters leave traces of warmth and resonance in a world attuned to the ripple of emotion. Some visions explore entire landscapes of consequence, where every action and interaction carries gentle significance. Finn might observe patterns in the clouds. Rivers may hum faintly with the echoes of laughter or kindness. Marceline's music resonates with memory embedded in the environment. PB observes the slow evolution of her experiments, and Ice King leaves subtle, tender impressions of past encounters. Ooh itself feels alive, responsive, and reflective, its quiet intelligence amplifying the effects of each thoughtful gesture. These alternate endings encourage viewers to notice the unseen connections and to reflect on the beauty of subtle influence in the world. Humor in these final visions remains soft and layered, never harsh or abrupt. Finn may find himself chasing a curious, floating spark through the trees. Jake may stretch whimsically to comfort someone or fill a moment with playful grace. Marceline's music may create faint, unexpected laughter. PB's experiments may yield charmingly unpredictable outcomes, and Ice King's eccentricities provide a gentle levity intertwined with quiet emotion. These elements balance reflection with delight, maintaining the soothing, dreamlike atmosphere that guides the viewer toward calm, attentive immersion. Relationships are the heart of these alternate endings. Finn and Marceline share quiet, reflective companionship. PB and Marceline exchange subtle recognition and understanding. Finn and Jake's bond deepens through observation and gentle care, and even fleeting interactions with Ice King carry warmth and significance. Ward's sketches suggest that the connections between characters are as vital as any plot, forming delicate threads of empathy, trust, and reflection that softly guide the narrative forward. Time, too, flows with a reflective, almost lullaby-like cadence. Forests age and renew in subtle cycles. Rivers adjust their courses in gentle spirals, and villages evolve gradually under the influence of thoughtful, considered actions. Characters experience both linear and cyclical sequences, noticing patterns and echoes in the environment. Finn observes the cumulative weight of choices. Jake senses the emotional currents. Marceline interacts with musical memory. PB observes the consequences of her experiments, and Ice King perceives the quiet imprints of kindness. Each moment unfolds gently, creating a rhythm of reflection, empathy, and quiet understanding. As the alternate endings draw to a close, the world of Ooh feels alive with soft resonance. Every gesture, note of music, ripple in a stream, and movement through the land carries subtle significance. Finn, Jake, Marceline, PB, and Ice King move through the leakage of this world with awareness, patience, and gentle curiosity. The narrative emphasizes that growth, understanding, and empathy are as heroic as any daring quest. A reflection can be as powerful as action, and that even the softest gestures leave ripples across the universe. These endings invite us, the viewers, to linger with them, to notice the quiet beauty in subtle moments, and to appreciate the reflective, dreamlike cadence of a universe designed to soothe as much as it inspires. In the hush of twilight, with Ooh stretching endlessly in every direction, our journey through the lost drafts, secret visions, and alternate endings comes to a gentle rest. We have wandered through worlds that might have been, glimpsed possibilities that shimmer quietly at the edges of imagination, and observed the tender, reflective heart of Adventure Time as Pendleton Ward first envisioned it. Let your mind rest on these soft echoes of what might have been, allowing the landscapes, melodies, and gentle ripples of connection to settle like a soft lullaby around you. Good night.